Agenda, so we're going to get started. So first of all, thank you for being here, for making time out of your busy day. But it's good to be here. It's good to be sharing the knowledge and getting to know each other. There's a lot of BI professionals out there, and we just don't know each other. So this group, these events are intended to get to know each other. And this group was created 2.5 years ago. We started meeting at bars, literally, but we were working, we promised. We were talking about BI, we were talking about ideas, we were talking about creating something bigger. And with the time, after 2.5 years, this is getting really, really big. So these are some remarks of the group. The group was originally founded by company Analysis Express, whose CEO and owner is Subrata Detner. He is with us here. He was always pushing to make this group grow. And with the time, we joined the effort, and we have been trying to keep this group together and growing. Now, with the support of sponsors, we have been able to put this together, and we want to make it bigger. So it's up to us.
Just a quick fact, we now have 477 members in the group. This is our 12th networking event so far. The first 5 or 6 were pretty small, 5, 6 people per event. But on the last event, we had about 65 people, members to show up. Just a quick fact about the group. Who are the members of this group? Some of the large companies, including some of the consulting companies, are the members of this group. But members come from GE, TNT, Gifford Bank, Electrica, Banking, and all of the large companies in the area. Also, software vendors, Oracle, IBM, Informatica, they come and visit. So you have already known me. My name is Subrata and Alejandro, but I also like to thank some of the folks who has made this event possible. For example, Sharon Peters, right there. So thank you very much Joel Gunapro from Netflix, he could not be here today. Megan Files, I believe she's outside registering still, all the members. And Karen, thank you. Yep, thank you. Go to the next slide. We're talking about the members, and for the members of the group, I want to recognize some of the companies that helped us along the way over the last year and a half or so. Indica, they were bought by Oracle. Pinnacle Technologies, I believe a couple of folks are here today. Thank you very much. Alpine Consulting sponsored a couple of our events, including today's event. So thank you very much. Thank you. ICC, Information Control, they are in Columbus-based company. I don't know if anybody is here today. I haven't seen anyone. Solidity, Informatica, sponsored Oracle, sponsored a couple of times. It's HPCC also, and Private Technologies, Cardinal Solutions. Anyone here? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, I also want to thank our current event sponsor, Burtis. They are here. Thank you very much. Don't see Brian yet.
I'll be here.
Okay. And Calvin Consulting. So thank you. Divine Group. All right, thank you. And of course, champions for giving us this space. This is fantastic. So thank you very much. All right. So just to update you about some of the future plans that we have for 2015. Obviously, this group has started very informally. We didn't have any agenda. We didn't have any constitution or charter or game plan or any kind of planning. So in 2013, we want to do the charter and operating plan, so we know where we are going and what we are doing. That's very important. The next topic is mentor purpose program. So what that is, with the downturn in the economy, a lot of people either have lost their job or a lot of people are trying to move to analytics, analytics profession. So with mentor purpose program, the idea is for consulting companies to kind of pair up with those folks so that they can quickly get into that analytics field and find a job or find a profession in that area. Analytics consortium, the idea about that is instead of one consulting company trying to provide a solution to a client, is to have multiple consulting companies to come together and provide the best of the breed solution. So some consulting companies are very good in project management, some are very good in sales, some are very good in sales signal, SaaS, type of modeling. To come together to help with a particular problem. And this problem can be too big to handle for one consulting company. So with a consortium, it would be possible to do. Big data lab, the idea is already being implemented, not in Cincinnati, but in Boston. There is a company, a non-profit company that has a lab where they have a lot of computers set up. So if you have a big data problem, you don't have to pay a consulting company. You can just go there, take your data, and they can analyze the information for you and say, all right, now you can hire this consulting company and do further analytics on the data. So yeah, that is a quick way to kind of implement your big data plan. So that is in our club to kind of start in that route. Of course, Analytics Summit, I appreciate all of you coming here today. And of course, some of you are coming to this event, this is your second or third, fourth time. You have noticed that, we are gaining momentum and there is a lot of participation. If we continue in this route, maybe we should do an Analytics Summit possibly at the end of 2015, where we'll spend a day or two discussing different topics in analytics. Something similar to the idea of the Data Warehouse Institute or the BI network, where or even analytics work. And it happens in big cities, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, why not Cincinnati? So that's the idea. And of course, we need to partner with them. That's in our house too. Of course, tell your colleagues, tell your friends, we need more members in the group. It's a LinkedIn group. It doesn't cost anything. And share their ideas, thoughts, and experience with us. All right. So, of course, we would continue to invite famous speakers to our events and learn from them. So that is always been wonderful. All right. We have a Facebook page with some of the pictures, as you can see, and we do some of the surveys. All right. Special recognition. Are there any students here today? Okay. You're from UC? Okay. Good saying. I'd like to welcome you. It's a professional group, but we welcome students and So let me see, most attended. So anybody here attended 4 or more events, civic events so far? All right, great. Have a good night. Thanks for coming and coming back. All right. And this is first time event, first time participation. Anyone? Raise your hand. Okay, great.
Nice.
All right. All right, welcome. Hope you come back to the next event too. All right, we need a lot of volunteers to organize and board members if you're interested. You have the survey with you, fill out the survey, and so that we know we can contact you. And that's all I have. Thanks for your support. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Sharon Peters. Thank you for giving us this space. Give me this slide.
No, I don't have any slides. I just want to thank everyone for coming. I hope you found it okay, and it was easy enough with the confusion with where the lobby was. Tried to post a sign, they wouldn't let me, so. We have drinks in the back, refrigerators, the restrooms are to the right when you exit the store, and that's about it. Here at Great American, we have a business intelligence group of about 50 people. We are starting to get into predictive analytics and big data, working with extracting information out of insurance claims. So this group is of much interest to us, and we're excited to sponsor this. Hopefully we can sponsor more and learn along with everyone else. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be sitting in the back of the room. Thank you. Joe is up next.
Yeah, our first speaker is Joe Mora. He's the VP of Analytics and CEO of the Divine Group. I'm not going to give a lot of details because we could spend time. But just to say that Joe has more than 30 years of experience working in analytics. In his presentation, you have it in the agenda, is analytics and data visualization, then and now from one analytics.
Thank you very much. My name is Joe Kazawara, and I work at the Divine Group. And my topic is essentially analytics then and now. I got the inspiration for this talk by listening to the president of dunnhumby USA last month. dunnhumby helps analyze the Kroger data. I'm not sure if you shop at Kroger, got little Kroger cards. So every time you swipe, that transaction is recorded. So obviously they're talking big data, a lot of analytics. And so he had a slide showing what dunnhumby did. And on the current side, had all the cool analytics that dunnhumby has done and continues to do. And then on the left side of the screen, went back in time, almost as if you were going back toward the Big Bang. And maybe not that far, but maybe to, say, like the Jurassic period. And he mentioned some analytics that were going on back then. And it was like he was talking like it was like ancient history and dinosaurs, and he didn't even know like when that stuff was done. It was so far back. And I looked at the slide and I realized I was doing that. So I was like, wait a minute, I know when that was done. That was done in 1987. And he kind of looks at me like, what? Not only that somebody knew and did that stuff, but they were still alive. So I'm still alive, which is good. Good to know. And it's not that far back that we were doing analytics. A little bit of bio. I am VP of Analytics and CIO of the Divine Group. We are a HR consulting firm. Spent 20, and do analytics obviously, 20 years at Procter & Gamble, all doing analytics. Taught a couple of years, adjunct professor at Xavier, and taught a little bit at UC in analytics. And lastly, my undergrad degrees in analytics. So hopefully you see a theme. So analytics is kind of my passion, so that's where I've played for 30 years. Now, the name's changed though. Back when, in the 1980s, we didn't talk analytics, we talked operations research. And one of our speakers, Dave Rogers, actually had a little program about operations research. It's probably the second time I've seen operations research in about a decade because nobody knows the name. The teaching at a university was not analytics, it was called management science. So, not a very sexy name there. At Procter & Gamble, some of our names were as great as like math and computing. Does that sound like a great name? No, not really. So we finally, after 30 years, came up with a great name. So analytics, it's hot, it's cool, it's a good name, people know it. Now, we're getting to the meat of stuff. Let's talk analytics humor, kind of oxymoron. But one of the great shirts I saw on Snort Tees was, Dear Algebra, stop asking us to find your ex, she's not coming back. So you get some analytic humor there. This one I saw on Car Talk. I dream of a better world where chickens can cross the road without having their motives questioned. So obviously, why did the chicken cross the road? So that's a great one from Click and Clack on Car Talk. Then I was curious as to all these great buzzwords that are going around. So I did a Google search this morning. Googled predictive analytics, 5 million hits. That's pretty good. That's great. People are getting the word out. Data visualization, 39 million hits. Good. Since I have some CIO duties, I taught cloud computing, and I'm authorized, or I have to say cloud computing every third paragraph. When I write something, it's like a requirement. You've got to put cloud computing things down. 284 million. Business intelligence, 73. And this was my surprise. Big data. 1.7 billion. 1.7 billion hits. That's just incredible. So here's a lesson out of this, is that whenever you talk about analytics or cloud or data visualization, put big data in there too. And so that was my big idea. I got an email today, and somebody was talking about big data analytics. So they stole my idea. So you got to put big data whenever you talk about any of this stuff. You'll be found. So, working with Megan here, and Megan said, "Hey, Joe, you got about an hour. Do you think you can do 30 years of history in like an hour?" "Oh, sure, I can cram 30 years of history in an hour. Easy." And Megan said, we're kind of tight on time, so can you make it 45? So, okay, I'll just take out the 2000s. Nothing good happened then anyway. Stock market crash, recession, let's cut that out. And Megan said, Joe, we're really tight on time. Can you make it a half hour? Well, sure. I can kind of call it the 90s. They were good, but 80s were really cool. That was way back when. And then Megan called me up like a fourth time, so I stopped answering the phone because we were limited to the 80s. And one nice thing I see about the crowd is that probably half the crowd, this is all new stuff. This is great. You'll learn about stuff that like nobody's ever heard about, you've never seen before. So this will be all by brand new. So this will be kind of fun. One of the things we used to use in the 1980s is that little device. And I'm not sure if anybody here has used one of those overhead projectors. You can tell people that use them because they're blind in the central spot of their eye. Because you had that light, and you had to stare at it while you're doing the writing on top of the thing. So people kind of walk around with a little blind spot in their eye if they've been teaching and they're working in the 1980s. So back in the 80s, what were some of the key buzzwords back then? Business process re-engineering was popular. Obviously Deming's total quality lectures and material. Israeli physicist Goldratt had theory of constraints. And for data visualization, I think the coolest thing back then were fractals. And so if you ever seen any of the fractal designs, very cool stuff. I'm not sure it was ever applied anywhere, So if anybody's actually applied fractals, let me know, because I'm not sure what kind of business decisions you'd ever make with fractals, but they sure did look great back then. And now again, here's the buzzwords that we use. So now using business process reengineering, got predictive analytics, data visualization, cloud computing, business intelligence, and big data. One of the first projects I worked on at Procter & Gamble was scheduling television commercials. So P&G buys a lot of TV time, and they'd be on the big three networks at the time, ABC, CBS, NBC. We used a optimization package from IBM called MTSX. And there was this beginning new kind of spreadsheet thing called VisiCalc. So anybody ever use VisiCalc? Oh, good. There's some experienced people in the room. Excellent, VisiCalc. Sure, anybody under 30 probably never heard that one. And every brand wanted to be on Dallas. That was a hot show at the time. I think was pulling in about $160,000 for 30-second spot, which was just outrageous, but that was the #1 show. We had multiple soap operas. And again, the analytics here was to run a large-scale integer programming model to what we call maximize the effective impressions. So to optimally match the brand's desired demos with the people that were watching that show. So certain brands would line up with certain shows better than others. So when you're spending several $1 million doing this optimization, you can get 5–10% better matching. You're getting essentially $2 million free exposure. So, and what do we have now? We have 1,000 panels with nothing to watch, except for maybe Discovery Channel history and Sunday Night Football. I think all the good football games have been on Sunday night. Excel Solver is probably a technology you can probably do what I was doing 30 years ago. So Excel Solver, it'll add in, you can put onto Excel to solve linear programming problems. I'm not sure if any brands want to be on Dallas anymore, but it has come back. And for soap operas, we now have Judge Judy and Dog the Bounty Hunter, which I'm afraid of both of those people. They scare me a lot. So let's see. And back in '83, we had our little math colloquium too. Here we go. Here's from 1983. This is real. I actually got this on my analytics folder, so you can peruse what our topics were back then. We gathered in a room, definitely not as nice as this, and talk our little analytical models. Now we obviously have webinars, and email blasts. This one I got yesterday. Big returns from big data, business intelligence, performance management, predictive analytics, supporting data management technologies. The more an organization spends on these technologies, the higher returns on those investments, and it goes on and on. And they did claim in this article, good article, sample of 2,000% rate of return. Sounds like totally outrageous, but oddly enough, I think I've done some of those projects where you can get 2,000% rate of return. Because when you're working on such large kind of projects with so much data for so many dollars, if you do get 5%, 10% improvement on something, you can save millions. One particular optimization we did in the supply chain took out, probably about $2 million worth of inventory. That was probably with about 2 weeks worth of effort. So just amazing things that you can do with analytics, and if you got that data. Note to marketing, they got big data, good. They got business intelligence, they got predictive analytics, but they got data visualization and cloud computing. So this is a close one. This has 3 of the buzzwords. So marketing has to make sure you should try to get all 5. And this was the project I was referencing earlier for dunnhumby. Right now, dunnhumby can analyze data and even kind of target coupons to individual consumers. Very cool. I know I get my free egg coupon, and I rush over to Kroger, and I get the free egg, and I spend about another $50 worth of stuff, or $50 worth of stuff, so it's affecting my household. But back in the days, UPCs were just starting. Now, I'm not sure if people know this. There were two competitors on UPCs, the linear one and the circular one. But they thought the circular one was cool because they just needed one laser. And no matter which way you put the circle, the laser would hit it. But it was hard producing that circular UPC. So they went with the linear one and just made multiple lasers to try to hit it. So interesting dynamics back in the 80s. What we were analyzing was weekly store level pricing and price of the product, volume, how many bars of Ivers are sold. A feature is an advertisement in a newspaper, and the display is the thing in the store that you trip on or run your cart into because they put it right in the middle of the aisle. We used to run on these things called mainframes. Might not have heard of that before, mainframes. But you have this kind of dumb terminal, and you've got data, and you did your work like far away. Kind of like what we're getting to now again, where you're going to have a simple device and a lot of computing stuff done far away. We have things called double density Eagle drives to handle essentially, 10, 15 million records at a time. We use multivariate regression using SAS-STAT, and VisiCalc was going away. Lotus 1-2-3 was really building up, and that's the software that really was kind of killer app at the time, Lotus 1-2-3. And then Excel came out probably 87, 88, and just started to supersede Lotus 1-2-3. And the analytics here were to run a regression model to determine a brand's price elasticity, feature elasticity, and display elasticity. So you would take these millions of records, and you probably process them for 2 or 3 hours on mainframe trying to get it out. You came up with 3 numbers. The data center would call me up in the middle of the night and say, Joe, what are you running? Because like you're taking up all our double density disk packs, and you're running 3 hours of CPU time. I blow my whole yearly budget in like one run. Like, what the heck are you doing? Well, I'm trying to get 3 numbers. What? Yes, I'm trying to get 3 numbers. But there are 3 really important numbers. Because what the brands do with this, here's the data visualization slide from 1987. So like this is I think probably out of Lotus 1-2-3. Is you could see what the volume increase in your product was based on whether you had a price discount, which is the black, whether you had a feature in the newspaper or a display in the aisle. So some of my great coding work was like, so we look at Top Job, Spick and Span Pine, Mr. Clean and Comet. Notice that third bar is really high. It's very display sensitive. Whereas the Pampers, Loves, and Huggies, that first bar is a black bar, that's the price elasticity. So what you could do is then hand this data over to the marketing people, and depending on the category, depending on the brand, they could help adjust their promotion dollars. And P&G spends a lot of money on promotions, by the way. So if you can make more effective use of your dollars, you get more people to buy your stuff. So interesting analysis for one brand, and then if you do this analysis across brands or a meta-analysis, kind of interesting results and interesting consistent results. So back then, we did some distribution siting studies. So where to put our warehouse and where to put our plants. And this are my data visualization slides here. So this was the high end in the 889. I had a HP 4-pin color block. I bet less than 5 people have seen one of those. Has anybody seen one? Have you seen thing? Okay, 5, 6. Okay, you've seen an old pen plotter. It clicked when it right. It jibber jabber and click around. So we have some cool things. We have a nice plotter. We can plot the demand and plot the solution. So here's high-end graphics for you. This is it. This is 1989. What this is a volume graph, actually, of soda pop consumption, crush in particular. So at high consumption, kind of northeast, a little southeast, Texas, and California. So here's the super duper high-end graphics. This is it. This is high-end graphics in 1989. So an HP pen plotter, you could plot the United States, and from each little design, we can see that the Texas warehouse was serving kind of eight states around Texas, and the other 4 warehouses were servicing territories around their respective area. So I saw this kind of slide, and I saw this article. They are mapping dark matter now. Kind of interesting thing. Dark matter. We don't know what it is. Don't know how it got there. We can't see it, but we can figure out what it looks like. So it's kind of it's amazing. You can't stuff. You don't know what it is. Don't know its nature. I can't see it, but by inferring some data with lensing techniques, you can come up with a 3-dimensional model of dark matter. So just 30 years gone from kind of a pen plotter to something that's just phenomenal. So that was back then. Let me talk about my company, the Devine Group. Established in 1970. We have about 5,000 clients, headquartered in Kenwood, Cincinnati, and we create psychometric assessments. So if you were a teller applying for a job, say at PNC, there's a PNC branch right in the lobby of this building, you probably will have taken one of my tests. So you do a study to determine what's important in that role as a teller, or a branch manager, or a financial consultant, and you come up with 8 to 10 competencies needed that are important for your role. We can build the questionnaires that help figure out how good or bad you might score on those competencies. We have industrial organizational psychologists. We have HR generalists, people who have worked in HR field, usually at a company as an HR manager. And we have analytics and predictive modeling people. And what we do is we use the psychometric data to help predict success. Our main area is in talent selection and talent development. So again, if you are a PNC or we have a lot of clients in the hotel industry. So what we do is, along with the normal hiring process, we probably take one of our assessments and get graded on how well you match the needs of that job. Being in the business for 30, 40 years, we have a variety of verticals. Again, mostly probably financial and hospitality as of late. And here's our NASCAR slide. So we have a variety of clients represented across those industries. So analytics and assessment, this is kind of interesting. In creating an assessment, there's actually a lot of quant work that goes into making a test. You just can't kind of create some questions and call it valid. So we run 5 kind of analytical processes or studies on each one of those. First one is alphas. So when you ask a person about how detail-minded they might be a teller. You got to make sure you're manage the cash register well, and add and subtract and give out the right amount of cash. You'll ask several questions about how detailed you are. a technique called the alpha analysis, helps you understand how correlated all those questions are. So you might come up with 15 questions. By doing some studies, you might say, okay, these 10 are probably the best questions to answer whether you are detail-minded or not. You do inter-construct correlations, so your score on detail-mindedness might also be highly correlated with how organized you are. That might make sense. A person who might be organized might also be very detail-oriented. Use factor analysis. Usually a test has about 30 what we call constructs. So we can do a factor analysis to see if all these 30 constructs are kind of hanging together. So there might be several constructs around leadership, might be some constructs that all hang around customer service. There might be several constructs hanging around conscientiousness. So you can see if any of these, if your test is kind of making sense. So this is kind of like does the data kind of make common sense that these base scales or constructs are lining up. Another interesting thing that you do is you do inter-test correlation. So not only do you give people your test, you give people competitors' tests. So it's kind of an interesting way to say your test is good is that it looks just like their test or kind of acts like their test. So you might take our test, run it against the NEO, run it against the Hogan, and see if our constructs are matching up to theirs. And lastly, type 1, type 2 testing. So if you take the test today, 2 months from now, if you take the test, it does come up pretty much the same. And it should. People are fairly stable. Everybody has good days and bad days, but mostly your inherent characteristics are pretty stable. So you should make sure, or you have to make sure that your test results from today pretty well line up with what's going to happen a couple months from now. When you apply these assessments, you apply it to a group of people, and we can do what's called a concurrent validation study. This is where you get, say, 100 people, 100 tellers to take the test, and get their supervisors to rate them. And so what you want to do is make sure that the test results are lining up or correlated to what the supervisors say. You use other statistics like their efficiency, with call center, call time. So what you want to do is prove that the test is also kind of correlated with what managers are saying or what some of your statistics are saying. One thing cool on doing multiple things like this is that when you're running studies, say for sales, done several studies there, you can see consistent results. So there's kind of one feature, in our tests anyway, that almost every good sales group has. And that's kind of nice to see from an analytics standpoint, is consistency across groups. So when you see a sales group, 99% of the time, not 100%, you will see goal orientation, which means people are driven. They want to set a goal, they want to attain it. Funny story is I had one analysis that this goal orientation wasn't coming up. It's like, it's got to come up. It's a sales group. You got to have goal orientation. I went back to the client and said, you know, boy, this is really strange. Can you check your data that you gave me? Because what I'm getting isn't what I'm usually getting. And they had mixed up the data. They had did some sorting or some imagination of the data, and the data was misaligned. When they corrected the data and gave it back to me, sure enough, goal orientation was a predictive of sales success. So it's good from an analytics standpoint that if you do enough of these, you start seeing kind of consistent results. So it makes you feel good as an analyst that you're kind of gleaning some knowledge so that the next study comes along, you kind of know what to expect. 3 cool developments. We were helping our military, working with a partner, Wilson Human Capital Group, to help our military transition back into civilian life. We have development reports, which usually say, here's what you're bad at, you need to develop. Well, we turned that around and said, here's your top competencies. So we evaluate you against about 84 competencies, and for that person kind of entering the civilian force, we'll say, and here's your top 5. So what we do is that we can put on your resume, and also puts it in business speak. So if you're very data-driven in your decision-making, a business person might relate to that better than maybe some military speak. So you're trying to help them move into the civilian workforce by communicating in a business speak what your strengths are. We're also helping students. We have a new product called Major Match. We're working with high school counselors. Students will take our test and help students help decide, you know, am I a good match for that kind of curriculum? And also gives them a few ideas of what other curriculums they might be kind of matched up to. Because this one is for the parents. Before spending 150 grand on a college education, take your assessments to find the right major, the right school. Because you'd rather have your kid go through the 4-year curriculum versus the 6-year curriculum, right? So as I have some friends do that. Lastly, this goes back to my first slide on re-engineering the business process. When you do these validation studies, that old method, determine the competencies needed for the job, your custom assessment, your custom selection report, takes about 6 months. It's quite an extensive effort. So you spend about 6 months to develop your job model, and you're kind of wiped out from work, and the client's kind of tired from all the work. We developed a couple surveys called a job requirement survey and job model builder that can help take that 6-month time frame. I've seen it done in less than 2 weeks. So there's a combination of applying analytics and the whole business process re-engineering to help take a process that, you know, instead of spending 50 grand, you're only spending 5 grand. Instead of taking 6 months, you're just spending 2 weeks on something. So that's a quick tour of the 1980s. Some stuff you might not have heard before on business health and Lotus 1, 2, 3 and MPSX modeling, and review and analytics in the HR area, which was much more expensive than I thought. So with that, I think my time is done.
We now have Dan Sweet from IBM, who's going to present. Eugene is going to present data visualization, cognitive psychology, and design principles for effective.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Joe. All right, guys. Well, I think you'll find me quite a contrast to Joe. He had a very clear path through life. You know, analytics, 30 years. And mine is going to look a little bit different than that, as you'll see. So, I grew up in Washington State. We've got mountains and ferries, and I worked on a ranch. I taught riding lessons. I took people on pack trips in the mountains. I wore Wrangler jeans. I had a hat. I had a belt buckle. I went to rodeos. I was into all that sort of stuff. I went to school at Washington State University, which is in Eastern Washington. And my school alumni newsletter just highlighted the fact NASA has actually selected Eastern Washington as the ideal location to test the Mars rover because it's so like desolate and like. It's like, I don't know if that's really your top news story you lead with in your newsletter, but they did. So after undergrad, which was economics, so not analytics, I ended up in inner city Los Angeles for a couple years. So I was, like Barack Obama, I was a community organizer. And I did some community development work with a nonprofit there for a couple years. And I had a good time, and I was like, this is interesting, but, our poor people have DirecTV. This is not like real kind of like issues. And I was like, I want to kind of go global and understand the world a little bit better. I'm young, and could do whatever I want. So I was like, all right. So I moved to rural northwest China for a couple of years. So a city of 3 million, that's the center picture there. There's a little bit of pollution going on. So rural, but like very dense packed urban, just on the edge of the Gobi Desert, out to 3,000-4,000 feet elevation, very tight valley, and it's crazy. You get down to like 120 feet of visibility in the winter, and then they like, you know, see the clouds, and it would rain torrentially for like 3 hours, and then you could see for like another week. So very interesting experience. And I ended up after that as a chaplain at Boston University. So I was sort of just kind of hopping all over the place. So I was there for a couple of years. My wife and I were married. We're like, this nonprofit gig is cool. We met a lot of nice people. It's good, but you know, we can't even afford to have kids. Like, we can barely pay our rent. So we're like, like some credentials would be good. So they let me into the Notre Dame MBA program. And I was like, I don't know if we can even afford to move. So I was like, well, I got a job. So I walked down the street to the Porsche dealership. I got a job selling Porsches. So right before the first like Bear Stearns hedge fund collapse and the market fell apart, it was still the high life in Boston. I was selling Porsches. I was having a good time, walking to work. And I spent a couple years in Notre Dame. I've got an almost 2-year-old, an almost 4-year-old, my wife Kathy, and I work on the Iams brand right now. So that's me. Not a very straight line, not a lot of analytics, but that's me. So, all right, I saw this article. This was in Forbes a year or so back. The title was like the Soap Matrix, and I was, you know, I think our. Just to be clear, so I work for P&G. I'm not a P&G spokesperson. These are my opinions only. So I think we have spokespeople. You can look them up on our website. But I think this is like our PR people just got a hold of this writer and really worked him over, because this was like the most amazing thing ever. We're so incredible. We do everything perfect, and it's amazing, right? So there are some very cool things at P&G, and like any big company, there's some very real kind of low-level challenges, right? So. Kind of seeing the highest heights, right? We have this thing called the business sphere. Has anybody here heard of the business sphere? We got like 5 or 6 people. Okay, so at the cost of a couple $1 million, a couple blocks from here, they ripped out like half the 11th floor and remodeled the whole thing. And we have this is the business sphere. It's an oblong shaped room. It's like screens all over the walls. They got like 13 vendors. They forced them all to work together to deliver this capability. Every morning, on Monday morning, the CEO and the members of the Global Leadership Council all sit around this table for like a 2 to 3 hour session. They look at consistent reports where they can drill down globally by category, market share, media spending, what's going on, what's competition doing, are we gaining share, are we losing share, what's happening, okay? What's interesting though is we've got 125, 130,000 people in our organization, and in this case, it's a very cool capability, but there's a lot of cases where the people actually running the businesses on the ground don't have as good a data as their bosses, right? So people will like, coming out of this meeting, they'll be like, hey, so-and-so, France Laundry is you know, we got to do something. And people that work in France Laundry are like, well, we've known that for 6 months, but it's, you know, now all of a sudden it's new news and something has to happen. And so it's kind of interesting. When I use my dashboard, right? Everyone on the dashboards, everybody into dashboards, and we have a dashboard at work. Few people have dashboards, right? I kind of feel like it's a little bit more like this, right? Like I'm not on the 11th floor. There's all kinds of stuff going on. I'm kind of into gadgets, and I'm always trying out new tools and new software items, right? So I sort of feel like I'm like the accidental tourist business intelligence user, kind of on the way to kind of get a chance to come today and join you guys. So thanks again for inviting me. So Sabrata and Megan, who dug me up on LinkedIn and invited me here, I'm excited to be here. So I'll be happy to talk to you guys, any of you afterwards about anything. But like many of you, I'm pretty busy, right? So I think we all manage our email in different ways. And some people are like inbox zero kind of people. I don't do that, right? So my work email, you can see I'm much more diligent. I only have 925 unread messages. But my Gmail, I was pretty early adopter in Gmail. I got in somewhere in the 04, 05 range. And I guess those are unread messages. I don't know. So I was trying to make sure that was right. I was doing the math lesson, and I was like, well, it's like, you know, a few years and then a few a day. I guess that's okay. I guess that could happen. But you know, phones, you get a preview. You're like, I don't know what that one. I think that is okay. So I think what I see a lot in the field of business intelligence in my own work as an analyst is it's challenging to break through. All the people that we work for, that we report to, that run businesses are under lots of pressure. It's tough times in the economy right now. Competition is fierce. There's all kinds of things going on. And so I think I see a lot of times, I see really great technology, really great capability, and really great people. And a lot of times they feel kind of misunderstood or disappointed or frustrated. They're like, we can do such cool stuff, but these people won't listen. Or like, they don't get it, or why don't they get it? Why do they keep focusing on this? Why do they keep asking me about that? Like, that's so not interesting. Like, I can tell them all about all this actually cool, interesting stuff. But, you know, they don't care for whatever reason. So I think my goal in the presentation today is to just share kind of some of my own thoughts and things I've learned along the way, things that I'm still working on personally. I'm not like, everybody listens to me at P&G. That, you know, some people do, you know, some people don't, right? So, but hopefully I can share some tips that will be helpful, and you guys will be able to apply it to your work and your life and help you kind of engage with higher impact and get people more excited about the ideas and capabilities you guys are bringing to the table. So, I was like, business intelligence. I'm not really, like I said, no formal like business intelligence training, so I just Googled it up, right? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of know it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I found this chart, and I was like, well, it's got a lot of cylinders on it, so this is probably the right one. Okay? So, and then there's like trees that are connecting things, and there's a warehouse. I saw the warehouse. It's like, that sounds familiar. And then I saw the users over here, and these guys look really happy. Man, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly it, right? Like, this is what we all know and love about business intelligence, right? And what I thought that was really interesting, the master and metadata at the top there, it's just like taking care of itself. It like looks good, like it's just, you know, nice yellow shade there, everything's flowing out perfectly. You don't see anything broken or screwed up or anything. During Joe's talk, I was getting emails about master data. It's like, wow, okay, yeah. It's not quite like that in the real world, right? Like, we all know that. So the users in general, I mean, this field's been around for 30 years, but I'd say in general the users are not happy, right? Like, maybe some of them are sometimes, but in general, I don't think the users are that happy, right? So, I mean, early on there was dashboards that looked like this, like you're driving a car, like there's a steering wheel. I've seen them with stoplights and like, you know, speedometers, and this is, I think, the Virginia Department of Transportation. And that second one from the left, oh, you know, pretty low. Only 111 people have died on the roads, you know. So, I mean, yeah, you feel good about that, right? So, you know, I mean, there's sort of some really bad dashboards out there. And I think if you guys are engaged in this group, you probably recognize these instantly, right? And hopefully you're all working to make these go away, right? So I found a great book called Information Dashboard Design. If you guys haven't read it, check it out. It's a really cool book. And it shows you and tells you and helps you understand and learn the principles and how do you make a dashboard that has a little cleaner design aesthetic, that's a little easier to get to the key measures, it's a little easier to surface the insights that you generate. So there's a guy, we'll call him Bill Johnson, that's not what I'm saying, but there was the Bill Johnson report, okay, in pet care. People were like, oh, the Bill Johnson report, when's it coming out? Oh, you know, like plus 6 days or whatever. And the Bill Johnson report would come out, and it had like 6 tabs, and it was an Excel file, and it was like, you know, you go down to L37 on like the 3rd tab, and then the, you know, various people in leadership would never go past the 1st tab, and then the numbers don't tie. I'm like, I thought you grew 2 points. This thing says you grew 5 points. And this thing says you lost 5 points. Like, what's going on? So the Bill Johnson report, like, I don't know. I mean, if anybody starts naming a report after you, it's probably because it's some crazy thing you kludged together. And just make sure that the really important part of your report is not like cell L137 on the 4th tab, okay? And if that is the really important part, make sure that, you know, when you save the file, like you're there. So when people open it, they get to the right place. And if you're going to email it to somebody, maybe even write in the body of the email, like, look at cell 137, or maybe even tell them what it says. Maybe find out, like, what's so important in cell L137. Oh, is it like market share, or is it like volume growth, is it sales, what is it? You know, is it costs? And you know, maybe put in your subject line, like, hey, all 5 points. I don't know. Then it can just be one more of my unread messages if it's like a 6-tab Excel thing. And in the subject line, I already know, hey, 6 points, good, okay? But if that's happening, like, that's better than, you know, your report just going around and being misinterpreted, but it's not as good as, oh, that's that guy who sends me that kind of useless report, but at least he summarizes it nicely for me, and so I never have to look at it because it's like so crazy and confusing, okay? So, I mean, these are just little things that I found along the way that I find helpful. When you see these things happening around you, so you and your colleagues like help each other out, like, hey, you know, all this confusion, maybe you could have like written in the email like what the results were, or do we even know what this report's for? My other favorite one is like reports that people are very attached to that like nobody has ever looked at. So, I don't know, make friends with like the server guy and find out, can you get like traffic stats? Like, has anybody ever visited this page on the server? Like, anybody ever? I don't know, I mean, you might be able to free up all kinds of resources and time to like work on something more interesting. So, there's this sort of legacy stuff we get sunk into, and you're going to work every day, it's your job, but like, look for ways to just get rid of like pieces of your work, because it's usually probably very possible. Back to the users being unhappy, I get reports that look like this occasionally. And people are like, yeah, it's really nice, you got it formatted and organized up for you. Like, that's great. Got the dollars, this one sales amount, orders. So this one got some decent labels. But then like BI advances, right? So now it looks like this. It actually has like percentages and dollar signs, and you're sort of happier about that. Better, but it's still got a ways to go, I would say, right? So has anybody ever heard of flowing data? This guy, Nathan Yau's got a blog. We got two people. Okay, all right. Everybody write it down or remember it or something. Flowingdata.com. This guy on the right, Nathan Yau, I don't know anything about him. Look him up. I think he's like a young kid, like 20s on, maybe 30. But he's got a blog. He's got a book. It's like one of the best-selling book on Amazon, all about data visualization. So what I find when I work with people in this field, what I said earlier, we get a lot of like the stereotype, the image, and the treatment and the respect from the organization, like the guy on the left. But like, data can be awesome if you figure out how to like visualize it, make it look good, make it relevant to the business that you actually work in, and help people deliver real business impact with your work. Like, you could be like a data rock star, right? And I don't think most of us go around feeling like that, right? We're just kind of like, yeah, it's a job, it's something to do with databases, and you know, people at parties are like, oh, I guess now you can analytics or big data, you can drop it and now it's cool, but for decades it hasn't been. So this is the big opportunity I think that I see though. So for me, I didn't know anything about data visualization, big data, a little bit about relational databases that I like looked up online, never taken a class, but I had this group and their job was reporting for the business that I worked on. There's like 6 people in this group. And anything I wanted from them was somehow impossible to provide. So any like new way to look at things, it's like, well, that would be a totally big scope change. I don't know if we could do that. Well, maybe in a few months, or we could look at it for next year. I was like, this is impossible, that this is like, you know, an $80 billion company, like that these are the answers I'm getting. Because it was a business we were investing a lot in, we were looking to grow it. We were trying to do some analytics and say, hey, what are the key drivers of growth for us? Is it this? Is it that? You get some hypotheses, you want to test them, you want to look at it, you want to know, are there correlations? Can I run some regressions? Can I do some ARIMA modeling? Is there, you know, things I don't understand, that there's statistical techniques I could use to say, hey, what's important, what's not? And how can that guide my business investments and growth? But I wasn't getting what I wanted from these guys. And so that's how I got into the field myself, right? And we'll loop back to that in a second. But I think the big point that another point I was interested in making is this guy like really revolutionized the world. So it used to be some stand-up comedian, he's doing a bit about like how quickly we forget like how good we have it, right? He's like, he's on a plane and some guy's like, damn it, the Wi-Fi's not working. He's freaking out. And it's like, dude, you're in the air at like 30,000 feet. Like, it's going to space. Like, just give it a second, right? Like, so, I mean, this guy has got us all used to having like supercomputers in our hands with like gigabytes of storage. I mean, you're talking about the double Eagle array drives. I remember I was like, what was it, like sometime in high school, and we got some cast-off equipment from Caltech or something. There was a drive like this big. They're like, yeah, it's like $60,000 and it's like 2 gigabytes and we think it's broken, but you guys can have it. And we never figured out how to make it work, but it was amazing. It looked like a motorcycle engine. like the casing on this thing. It was incredible, right? But now we've all got these in our hands, right? And so now people are spoiled, and the bar has been raised in like a major way for enterprise software and for all software, right? So now it's an app, and it's a super powerful app, and it's usually free. Maybe it's 99 cents. If it's a really good one, maybe it's like $4.99, right? Like, wow, and you're like, I don't know if I pay that. Okay? So I wanted access to this data, because I was like, these people aren't doing what I need. They're like, you need a license. What do I need? They're like, Cognos Impromptu, that's the one you want. Okay, I asked around, it's $1,500. I was like, well, before somebody spends $1,500 so I can get the answers, like, show me what this thing looks like. And it's like some Windows 3.1 type, like really clunky Windows, and like, you type in this stuff, and it's sort of like code, and there's a bunch of brackets, and it's kind of like SQL, but it's like our own bastardized version, and it's like, I was like, I don't think I want the company to spend $1,500, and I don't think I want to spend any of my time learning that, because if it's at least like plain SQL, like then I'd be like, maybe there's some transferability. I was like, this is like 3 years back. I was like, this is like 2009. There has to be something better than this. This just doesn't feel right. I was like, there's iPhones out there. Like, there's no iPads yet, but I was like, there's iPhones out there. So I think when we're thinking about how do we make our stuff better, make our stuff more usable, more interesting, more appealing, how do you make it simpler, how do you make it smoother, how do you make it faster, we need to look to the web. So whether it's these startups, whether it's big companies like Apple, these guys are almost bankrupt, $500 billion market cap. This is down massively, right? Like it was $700 like not very long ago, right? Everyone's like, it's gonna be the first $1 trillion company. It went from bankrupt to like $1 trillion company potential with just thinking about how do I make it simple? How to make it so good I can say it just works, okay? I'm not good enough to make stuff that like just works all the time. I can make stuff that works like pretty much most of the time, and but I'm around, call me if it doesn't work. But if you're making stuff that works like 10% of the time, and they gotta call you 90% of the time, like you gotta try a little harder, right? Because it's possible these days, okay? So I look at some of these things that are out there. So in the upper left, anybody use mint.com? Anybody? One, two, three, like 10, 12 people. I got it on my phone over there. You can hook up banking, checking, credit cards, student loans, car payments, just that, whatever. And then we just go around spending money. And no, I don't want to receipt. Like, I don't care. Like, it's all in mint.com, right? They'll tell me how much money you have. Oh, you spent all your money. Like, stop spending money, right? Okay, mint.com was like a few guys and gals working together. And I don't know how many people they have when they sold, maybe 30, 40, 50 people. They sold for $170 million to Intuit.com. And the big challenge there was, how do you get random people to feel comfortable with something free they downloaded off the App Store? Like, I'm going to type in all my passwords here. Like, this sounds like a good idea, right? I'm sure a lot of you in the room are like, God, that's terrible. There's like 10 people in this room that do that? Like, yeah, they do. So I do too. It's like, the value I get is like, it's worth the risk, right? They just have FDIC insured, they got fraud in it, so it'll be fine, right? These guys give me massive utility for free, okay? So I even let them market to me a little bit. They even pitch me on, hey, refinance your house. Yeah, lower rates, right? Like, I mean, huge business opportunity. And these guys built it from nothing in a few years, and it's worth $170 million, right? Like, so it's totally possible. I look at Dropbox is in the upper right. Dropbox, not a public company. They've raised $248 million. I don't know like how they're going to exactly get a return necessarily, because they got a lot of competitors now. But the thing about Dropbox was they're like, it just works. Put it in your iPhone, put it in your Android, put it in your Mac, put it in your PC. We don't care. Like, all your stuff will be there. Like, your device gets destroyed, you lose your device, your device gets stolen, all your stuff's in your Dropbox. No problem, okay? We got a big competitor, Box. It was Box.net, now it's just Box. Box landed like an 18,000 seat enterprise license with P&G recently. And they give it to me at work, and they're like, we're tired of people complaining about all these various backup devices. There's this thing, you just download it, it just works, okay? So I'm sure part of the pitch to P&G is like, your IT support people will not have to spend any time supporting this thing, it just works, okay? So kayak.com, I still remember one of the very first times I found Kayak, and I did a search for something, and there was all these little slider bars and stuff, and I was like, what if I don't want to get up at 5 a.m.? I'm like, let's slide this little thing over. Like, well, it's the same price, but now I don't have to filter through all these things. Like, Well, what if I want to check this airport? And it was like so intuitive and so easy to use. And I wasn't like squinting at little boxes, and I went to from, did I format the day rates, there were no slashes, like, there was none of that, right? Like, they just made it easy. These guys just got bought by Priceline.com, $1.8 billion. So, the power of design, spending time on design, even if you think you shouldn't, you should, okay? Because if you do, you will massively differentiate yourself from your peers, okay? So the fact that you guys are out here today, you guys care, you're looking to develop yourselves professionally, you're looking for more opportunities, I would say design, data visualization, these are huge opportunities. And if you invest some time on the side, read some of these books, learn some of this stuff, try some stuff out at work, you happen to work in a great field where, hey, it's the hot space right now. So how do you differentiate yourself? It's this kind of stuff. So I was like frustrated with these people. I was like, I did not want a Cognos impromptu license from what I've seen. I was like, this stuff is terrible. Like, I don't want to make sure I got all the periods and brackets, and like, this is not what I want to spend my time on. This isn't my job. I'm a finance manager for a sales team of 80 people. I have to like make sure that all their stuff is right, that they're getting the money they need, that we're on track to hit our sales goals. I was like, I need something that's easy. And I found this website, and they're like, business analytics, anyone can learn to use. I was like, I'm someone. This could be good. Let's see. Okay. And they got all these demos, and they got a free trial. I was like, oh, free trial. Then I have to talk to a salesperson, and I have to talk about how many seats, and then I have to get the server version, and I have to, there's nothing. It was just, click it, download it, it was like 70 megs and off and running, right? Then I had to go like be nice to some people that could give me some logins and stuff. So, be creative, be friendly, be interesting, ask them how their kids are doing, look around their desk, see what's going on, like, oh, you love softball, great, like, I played softball before, and the answer is always no, right? No, you can't have that. No, that department is responsible for, like, just don't listen to them, just be like, man, I could really, like, it'd be awesome if you could help me, and like, these people wouldn't have to, and I would stop bothering them, and so then you gotta keep bothering the initial people some more, and then eventually get them like, hey man, if you could just get them to give me the login. So anyways, a little elbow grease, a little detective work. You can get the logins you need, the access you need to get the data, right? So once you get the data, get a tool like Tableau. If you're like super geek hacker programmer, use R or something. If you just love a command line, like use R, you'll love it, okay? I'm not so much, right? So a very simple first project I did was like, hey, we got these people that manage a bunch of people. Everybody's got Amex cards, everybody's out in the field spending money, they're going on sales calls. Everybody's busy. They got to deliver their own sales goals, they got to make sure their people deliver their goals, and they got to like manage expenses and come in on budget, right? So every month I'd make this pivot file thing and I'd send it to them, and it'd scroll down like 8 pages long with like all their people spending, and they're like, yeah, take a look at it, make sure everybody's on track, and they're like, yeah, Dan, I'm really going to look at that. I'll totally get right on that. And it's like, well, let's see, courier services, $103, $206. Oh, well, I didn't have it the month before. Like, nobody was spending time looking at this, right? So I was like, I'm going to use Tableau. I'm going to play around with it. I'm going to see some interesting ways. So this is just one pane on the bottom of a dashboard I made. It's got like, you can make easy dashboards. I want to see travel. I want to see meals. I want to see this. I want to see flights. I want to see stamps. They would always joke about, put it on stamps. And I was like, is it a joke or are they like serious? I was like, I don't know. I better look at stamps, right? So I was like, check it out, right? But every one of these dots is an individual, actual out of SAP for like a line item expense. And, the list dynamically sorts, and there's people's names that you can't see here, but this guy in purple on the top, like, he's got all these purple dots. I was like, okay, that must be like the head guy. No, it's like the lowest guy, the newest hire. He's just like taking everybody out for steak dinners and stuff. And I was like, is this guy really good? Like, no, he's terrible. Like, there's no results, right? And I was like, well, take a look at this thing every month and like see what's going on. Make sure the people that are spending the money are giving you results. And what's with these people at the bottom? Is this guy like, is he fasting? I don't know. What's happening? He's eating lunch. He's had a meal like under 20 bucks twice, and then he spent $100 one time. Everybody else has got like 4 to 5 times the activity. So like, was he on disability? He just came back. Was he, is he really lazy? Does he not like people? Well, he's in sales, right? So, okay, we'll dig into that. There's a couple more down here with like pretty, these people, we want them spending money. We want them building relationships. We want them growing the business. So this is just like one very simple example. If you take something that you know nobody's using. Like, to tell you they're using it, you know they're not using it. You imagine, put yourself in their shoes. Would you ever use it? No, right? You're like, total's like, all right, well, I expect about 250,000 a month. It's about 250,000, okay? Now, do I know if this guy bought like 3 PCs and he's like gaming in his basement, he's got a projector, and like, you know, I don't know, it's about 250,000, right? Like, none of that happened, but there was some good things that people were able to find and like work with their people and get the organization like spinning at a little higher speed. All right, so speed. These guys have made us very, very spoiled, right? So Sergey Brin, Larry Page, you type in like 5 characters, how stays deep, and how do I put this gently? How do you make out? How do I register to vote? No, I mean, these guys are using crazy algorithms and they're learning everything and they're making it all like just like ready to go. You're like, oh yeah, I'm a junior hire. How do I make out? I've heard about making out. Like, you know what I mean? So I mean, when you think about how useful your tools are, think about who you're sending it to. Think about what the user experience is going to look like for them. How are they going to feel when they get this report and it's L137 on the 4th tab? It's super important, and they like, it's like one of 80 emails they got today, right? And they even open it because they just remember, I think this is that crazy one. Okay? All right. So Fred Wilson, he's a venture capitalist. He's been like in every big company early on in the day. He writes a blog, avc.com. He's out in Manhattan. Speed is the most important feature. If your application is slow, people won't use it. I see this more with mainstream users than I do with power users. So the bulk of us are power users. We're like, we appreciate like, well, this is a big query. Like, I did filter down first by this, so it's got it as a join, and it's got it. So okay, that's why I know I'm waiting 10 minutes, right? Like, people don't get that. You're like, I think power users have basically too much sympathy, and they're willing to live with it. When I look at my wife and kids, they're my mainstream view of the world. If something is slow, they're just gone, okay? So I got this Samsung Galaxy 3, right? And I had an iPhone 4, and it's my work phone, and anyways, I ended up with 2 phones, right? I hate my iPhone 4 now. It was totally fine, like 2 months ago. Doesn't have LTE, and every time I use it, I'm like, I was trying to like get on the internet. What is happening? Like, why am I waiting, right? Like, we get spoiled so fast. So Marissa Mayer, like CEO of Yahoo right now, she left Google. But she was working on Google search, and she was working on the Google search product and how to make it better. So they talked to consumers like, hey, well, would you like 10 results or 20 results? People are like, definitely 20. I want 20. They're like, what about 20 or 25? They're like, definitely 25. They're like, would you like 25 or maybe 30? And they're like, we'd like 30. They're like, this is, okay, all right, we'll do a little A/B test. So we'll route half our traffic for 4 to 6 weeks to the site that's generating 10 search results, and half to the site that's generating 30 search results. And we'll see what happens. So into 4 to 6 weeks, they look at the data, and the people getting 30 search results are now doing 20% less searches. And they're like, huh, how do we feel about that? Well, I don't know, maybe we're like really helping them, and they're like totally finding their stuff now because it's not past the fold, you know, like they can get their stuff. And they're like, no, it's like 20% less like first page initial searches. And what they found was they did a bunch of regression, they pulled out all the features, they ran some stuff, and latency, okay? Generating and showing 30 search results took milliseconds longer than 10 search results. It was slower, and people left. They're like, I don't want to wait for this thing. Like, even before it wasn't this slow, or whatever, right? So Google, like, they do all this A/B testing. They have this massive traffic. They have the flexibility to do that. But where we can kind of ride on the coattails is go, speed is absolutely the most important feature. So when you're building stuff, when you're making stuff for people, when you're answering people's questions, when somebody asks you for a specific like one-off thing, like it's all about speed. So if you want them to come back, if you want to be helping them more in the future, if the relationship with them is a good opportunity, like get on it quickly, because if the lowest level from like, hey, I asked them yesterday and they got it back to me today, oh, it's great. I'm used to waiting 2 weeks, they're getting stonewalled, they're blowing off, or told to work on it next quarter, or maybe next year we can build in that capability, or let's have a meeting to, you know, talk about the scope you're looking for and define the required. Like, people don't want that, right? They just want answers, okay? So ask yourself, kind of, what are people really looking for? And don't just take the answer that you think you know, right? So if anybody's worked in like lots of different fields, they call this production triangle. So whether it's construction or project management or programming, anything, there's this triangle. and you can pick two things from this triangle. You can only pick two things, right? A lot of you have seen this before. You want it cheap and fast? Oh, but it's not very good, yeah? You want it fast and good? Well, that would be expensive. Or, you want it cheap and good? Okay, but it's probably gonna suck to use. Like, I got all this stuff for free, I put it together, it sort of works for you. Like, let it run overnight, see what happens. Okay, so, I thought a presentation wouldn't be good without a Dilbert quote, right? So you ever heard what the problem is? How can you recommend building a database to solve it? We always build a database. Well, we need coffee mugs for the project team, and the problem is we have poor processes. That could be the slogan on our mugs. Okay? All right, so if you're going to differentiate yourself, if you're going to be able to break out from your peer set, and if you're going to be able to take your career to that next level, you got to not get stuck in this loop. And it's easy to do, because we got a lot going on. I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. There's some weeks I just don't care, right? You're just like, whatever, let's go to the meetings and just, okay, yeah, all right, sounds good. All right, but ask yourself, what is the business question? When you get a request, hey, can we get last year's sales over this, yeah, sure, what are you guys looking for? And, is there anything, what are you expecting to see? And, would it be helpful if I could, if it's never been on the report before, they probably don't even know that breakdown exists, right? So find out what they're really looking for. You may be able to wow and amaze with very little effort on your part, okay? And you may also be able to prevent the iterative do loop of do it over 5 times because it wasn't really what they wanted, but they didn't know it wasn't what they wanted. Somebody else tweaked it for them one time and showed it to them that way, and so they thought that was what they were gonna get. Okay, so always spend time on what's the business question, and then follow up. Hey, did that work out for you guys? Was that helpful? Did that enable any decisions? Was it actionable? That's another good question to ask. So when we see this data, what are we thinking we're gonna do? Okay, what are we gonna do differently now that we know this? These are good questions to ask. Okay? All right, so now into the kind of meat of it, which I'll go through quickly, but there's some cool resources, some books out there, you can Google this stuff up. The challenge at work is you gotta influence people, you're not their boss, they need your help, but they're human. They're emotional, they're a little weird, sometimes their kids are crazy, sometimes they get a flat tire, sometimes they're not in the best mood, sometimes they don't get the promotion they thought they were gonna, sometimes whatever. People are a little nuts sometimes. So, but your job as an analyst is I'm gonna be really impartial. I'm gonna totally tell them the truth. They're gonna be like, wow, that's the truth. That's totally what we're gonna do. Those of you with some work experience, maybe not a student, maybe not as much, but you guys will see this eventually. You're like, that was, what are they doing? I just told them what to do, and they're not doing it. It's very frustrating sometimes, right? So all of this whole I'm going to be impartial sort of assumes that objective reality exists, and I'm not always sure that it does. So I've got some quick examples. Here's a couple black bars here. Which one's bigger? Well, they're the exact same size, right? You guys have seen these kind of mental tricks, right? But this exists, and this is really real, and this happens all the time. So when you design a report or a dashboard or this or that, think about what you're doing, think about what's most important, think about where you want the eye to go, think of what you want things to look like. Google eye tracking studies, just the phrase eye tracking studies. See the stuff out there. There's all kinds of amazing stuff. Google some A/B test stuff that Microsoft Research did. There's an hour-long talk out there of a guy from Microsoft Research talking about all this A/B testing, and they're like, well, if the button's blue, well, if it's slightly bigger, well, if the search box is longer, well, then people aren't intimidated. If it's, it was a summer intern at Amazon who was people who bought this also bought this. It's just a random kid who was like, hey, well, we could do this with the data, right? So if you have that intellectual curiosity, you can have a big impact, right? Which line's longer. So these little visual tricks, which gray is darker. And they're the exact same shade. People don't believe it. I was like, I don't know. And then one time I was like, I'm going to use Photoshop and the pixel picker, and I'm going to look at the RGB values. I'm like, it really is the same color. That doesn't seem right, okay? But these things are out there, and they play tricks on people, right? So you're going to have surgery out. Good news, 90% chance you're going to survive. Well, we're going to have this surgery, but I got some bad news for you. There's a 10% chance you might die. Jeez, I could die. It's terrible, right? This was The Economist. Very smart reader base, very intelligent, educated people. Going to make a subscription offer to these people. We're going to give them a choice. Do you guys want to have, just the $59 e-subscription, or would you like to pay $125 and get the print and the web? And I'm like, geez, extra, like, all the paper, it comes in the house, we're gonna do it, I can't read it every week. I'll look at it online, $59 to save some money, right? Now they say, would you like to have a $125 print subscription, or we can give you that with the web for free, or you can have just the web. Like, just the web, that doesn't sound very good. And it like almost triples the rate at which people are like, yeah, I totally want to spend $125 to get The Economist. Okay? This is called the decoy effect, right? So there's a guy, Robert Cialdini, he's got a book called Influence. Great book. If you go to like a business store or anything like that, they'll definitely cover organizational behavior stuff. It's got all kinds of like creative ways to trick people into doing what you want, right? Okay? You want them to do something that's kind of a pain in the ass. First you ask them to do something that's really, really a pain in the ass, and then they say, no way in hell. And you're like, oh, would you consider doing this? And they're like, okay, yeah, that's not so bad. Okay? All right, so there's all kinds of like these little mental things out there, right? And these happen, and these play a real role, right? So there's all kinds of problems with people. People like to be active. They like to have an action orientation. There's all kinds of ambiguity, and that scares people. People are like, I don't want to like have any risk. I don't want anything bad to happen. Like, maybe there's a risk. Maybe we should do something about it. Okay? So people are biased to action. There's Daniel Kahneman, Harvard behavioral psychologist guy's prospect theory. It's equal. What do you want to do? You want to like gain $50 or lose? And it's like people are totally scared of losing. They're like, I do not want to lose. Whatever happens, I don't want to lose. Like winning would be nice, but no, I definitely don't want to lose, right? So when you're framing up things, when you're making recommendations, there's all kinds of little things you can do that help have a better chance of success. So when you're presenting information visually, there's all kinds of stuff you can do to make it easier for people to get what you're presenting, okay? You can make it feel familiar, you can make it look like you're going to avoid losses, or you can make it look like you're going after gain. So you got to kind of know where the person's at, like what are they looking for? Are they like really aggressive type, like I really want to go make something happen? Or are they a little more like stable and they're like, geez, I wouldn't want to have any losses, right? So I mean, even the title of your report, if you get the exact same report, just the title can matter, whether they're like, this guy's sending me stuff that's scaring me. Like, I don't like this. But wow, this guy's going to solve my problems. Like, wow, he's got a real solution. I should listen to this guy, right? Like, so, I mean, there's little tweaks in here all the way along. But we'll go a little quicker, but make your stuff intuitive. Make it easy for people to get. The way those companies build like $100 million, billion-dollar businesses is they made it easy for people to use their products. They made it easy. They found out what people wanted. They found out how people work. They mapped their product, designed their product exactly to meet that flow. We can all do the same thing. Like what's the business question? What are you looking for? When do you have to decide by? Do people like to get the information in advance? Do they need some lead time? Like, should we circulate it beforehand? There's all kinds of things you can do to like totally blow up your meetings or like make them run really smoothly, right? So storytelling, I told a couple stories and weave them in here a little bit to kind of get a couple of my points across. There's lots of stuff out there on storytelling. Now to the design principles. These are all like, I'm not that smart, they're all ripped off. Like Stephen Few, Edward Tufte, they do conferences, people go to them, you pay like $1,500, you get some books, you like put them on your bookshelf, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Napoleon's March, like the temperature and the size of the army, and you're like, I don't use InDesign, like I'm not gonna make that. Like, it's crazy stuff. People get, it's like data art, it's like, infotainment kind of stuff. Like, so you gotta decide, what's your goal? Are you trying to inform? Are you trying to help people decide? Are you trying to make something really amazing, entertaining? You're trying to display your Photoshop skills, your Illustrator skills? Figure out what you're going for. But in general, I'm just looking to inform, communicate, facts, and like kind of move the ball for it. So, data to ink ratio. So in the upper left to the bottom right, it gets better and better. So, like Excel 2003 or something, every graph looked like it's got the shaded background outside, it's got the double, triple grid lines, it's like got stuff everywhere. Like there's some bars in there somewhere, it's like they're in jail. You're like, what are they doing? I don't know, right? Like, what I actually want to know is the values and how they compare, right? So make it easy for people, strip all that stuff away. You need a line connecting the 5% to 10%. Like, are people going to be confused? Like, well, is 10 bigger than 5? Like, no, they're going to figure it out, right? So, I mean, think about, do you really need it? Every ink that's on the page, think about it. 2D versus 3D. There's like weird mental stuff that happens. People love 3D, they're like, wow, that looks cool. It's like really smart stuff on this paper. The problem is, the brain works, well, this picture's screwed up, but from the upper left to the lower right is like the 2D and linear stuff. The brain's like, I get that super quick. I get it. I can compare those things. I know it. You make it 3D, it has to go like in a separate loop in this, to the spatial part of the brain. It's like, what's going on? It's going to like this, think about that. Okay, you're creating and you're injecting all this uncertainty. How many 3s are here? Just do it like this, right? Like, what's the business? What's the question? How many 3s are there? Okay, make it easy for Bill. Gray the whole thing out, find the 3s and make them red. Send the email, there's 5 3s. Okay? Hey, good news, the query came back. Here's the results. Like, we're squinting at it, cursing you. Like, all right, color. These colors. So this is called like pre-attentive processing. Okay, so there's things that the brain can get like instantly. It's not 3D stuff. It's not stuff with all kinds of crazy labels. It's just simple stuff. So use color. If that's an important dot, you'll be like, towards the right, there's this one that's kind of important. Shapes. If that one's important, maybe make it a different shape. Okay. Click it once in Excel, click it a second time, it's selecting just a different format data point. Maybe you can put a label on it, tell people what's going on. Okay. All right, and then this one tripped me out. 1 out of 10 people think red and green, they just see it like gray. So I mean, it is scary. Like there's more than 10 leaders at P&G. And we get all kinds of scorecards that are like red, green, some have yellow, some people are like, no, there's no yellow, there's red or green. Okay? Like, well, for a 10th of you, apparently there's just gray. Like, what? So think about color. There's a website, colorbrewer.com. Are these binary things or these categorical things? Range. All right, so Stephen Few's got a book called Show Me the Numbers. Good book, kind of expensive. If you've been to one of these trainings, you have it. This guy's got it on his shelf at home. Okay. This is an example of a really crappy chart. Looks fancy. Looks like someone did some good work. Hopefully nobody in the room produced this, right? Okay. You go research some Forrester subsidiary. Okay, so they're like different types of the enterprise use IT different ways. And you're like, no. Some, like these yellow ones are business users. Some produce stuff. Some consume stuff. A bunch of weird shading and dots and stuff. Like I don't know, right? So Stephen Few in his book gives some before and after examples. It's like percentage of people using it. Like what are they doing in this color? They're like consuming or they're producing. That's it. It's a stacked bar. It's like sorted, big to small, easy to get the info, right? So if you're using a pie chart, usually you're doing something wrong. Okay. So just keep that one in your mind. Maybe go read some of these books. Think about it a little bit. But there's almost always a better way to visualize things in a pie chart. So that's it.
We are ready to resume our session. We have still 3 more topics to cover. We hope that everybody has comfortable to it. Because that is the most important part of this event.
Sorry.
We can keep going. Instead of being an event for 4 hours without any food, so food is top priority. We want to keep the ball rolling. We want to continue learning. And while we listen to our next presenter, just want to remind you, for those who haven't still been at the restrooms, they are to the right. There's ladies and gentlemen restrooms. And also a reminder about the survey. All of you should have given a piece of paper with a survey. This event, if it keeps being great, it's because of the input of all of us. So if you have any ideas, if you have good comments, bad comments, all of them are welcome because all of them allow us to learn more. So with that in mind, we're going to continue. Our next topic, we have the title of Advanced Analytics, Relevancy in All Industries. And this is going to be presented by Steve Patterson from Advanced Analytics Initiative. How are you doing? So, you, Steve.
Thank you. They put me after dinner so that I wouldn't put you to sleep. I'm only going to be 15 minutes, okay? So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, and we'll get right out of the next one. My job here is to kind of set the stage for some of the next discussions we're going to have and give you an idea of the why behind it. Why do I care about predictive analytics? Why do I care about what's going on in this space right now? But before I do that, I told Joe I was really bummed in his presentation. He didn't give any description of the first dashboard back in the 80s. he's talking about beyond back in the 80s, which is rebar paper, everybody knows, right? And some of you aren't even old enough to know what rebar paper is. But yeah, that was the original dashboard back in the 80s. And I was also going to apologize to Dan on behalf of IBM for Cognos Impromptu. But then I got to thinking, Cognos Impromptu came out in, I think, 98 or something like that. So the fact that his group was still using it 11 years after it came out, hey, you know what? If an iPhone 4 is still working 11 years from now, they'll be doing well as well, right? Cognos is in a new version. Talk about that later.
I just wanted a screenshot of like how terrible it was. I couldn't find it. They're all the better ones. We just don't buy them.
We made sure they were all off of Google so nobody could see those screenshots. So what is predictive analytics? We're going to go into that a little bit real quick, and I'll tell you what it's not right off the bat. IBM has a tool called SPSS. It's not R, it's not SAS, it's not a tool, okay? When you talk about predictive analytics, you'll hear a lot of people talk about it and use different descriptions of what it is. To some people, predictive analytics is a line graph where you extend that line another 6 months and that is predictive, right? That's predictive analytics to some people. That's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about something that's a little more intense and it helps you anticipate change so you can plan and carry out your strategies and improve your outcomes. It's about process enabled by technology to help you act and create something and do something with the knowledge that you've got, right? The whole concept behind predictive analytics was alluded to by Dan earlier when he was saying, hey, you know, it has to be actionable, right? We have to be able to do something with this data rather than just show a nice report or a nice dashboard with it. It has to be actionable. Create something with it, transform something with it. So it comes out of this gap between data and outcomes, right? So in information explosion, there's a ton of information out there. All this detail about all these different products and solutions that your organization uses or your company sells or your people are going through. How do you align those and make the right decisions? How do you make the information available where it's needed, when it's needed, at the right time? How do you get all that detail together to help decision making? And so the result of predictive analytics is taking that, synthesizing it down into a manageable unit of data that can help improve something, that can help an early warning system, that can create a fraud detection system, those types of things that enable better decision making. So at IBM, you guys see the Smarter Planet stuff all the time, right? I'm an IBMer, I'm all about Smarter Planet too. But we kind of look at predictive analytics as being the smart in Smarter Planet, right? So if you look at some of the things, what if you could predict illness and prescribe treatment earlier? Right? You've probably seen some of the news stories about Watson being used in a New York hospital to kind of be the doctor, if you will, right? How can we help prescribe treatment earlier and quicker? How can we detect crime before it happens, right? If you could get this to police forces so they can know ahead of time, hey, we need to put resources here, here, and here this next weekend because all of these factors indicate this is where our crime is going to go up. And it's beyond just a sergeant knowing in his head, hey, it's a weekend, we've got a football game, you know, we better staff up. It's bringing in stuff like weather patterns, bringing in other events throughout the city that maybe you're not tracking on a regular basis. Bringing in data from the jails, from the courts, from all these different other sections, bringing them together, synthesizing it down to help make predictions. What if you could identify in a university which students are at risk of dropping out, or in a school district? What if you could identify before they drop out? One of the things we hear from universities all the time is, shoot, I know when my students are ready to drop out, like 3 weeks before, maybe, that's right? And it doesn't give you enough time to do anything about it, right? They leave and now we don't have those students anymore. In a school district, you don't know the students dropped out until they didn't show up to class for 2 weeks, right? What if you could predict that ahead of time? That this student is on a track where if it keeps going the way he's going, he's going to drop out. We need to intervene now. We need to make changes in how we're dealing with things now. What if you could detect which tax returns were likely fraudulent? And this is beyond like the normal, you know, hey, there was 150 tax returns from one address in Michigan, right? Hello, there's probably a reason that's fraudulent, right? But what if you could incorporate a bunch of other data sets into that, bring those together, and then send every tax return through a process that is analyzed and scored by this model that identifies it ahead of time. Hey, you got 100,000 tax returns, here's 15 that are most likely fraudulent. Check those first, then here's the next 450. Then there's the next 2,000, right? You go down that list and have your fraud people look at it in that order. Stockholm, Sweden, what if you could predict where traffic congestion is going to occur? My theory, I used to live in LA, that if they could do this in LA, holy cow, it would be incredible, right? Because LA, there's traffic jams all times of the day and week, doesn't matter when. If you could predict where that was going to occur and why, maybe you can do something about it. What if you could predict which customers would buy your product and when? We're going to talk about a few of these examples of what some of these smartest and smarter planet are as we go through this thing real quick. We've got about 5 minutes here, but I want to hit a couple of examples of where people have done this and the impact it's had. First one's from an insurance company. Talking about being smart by lowering the cost of claims, right? Putting embedded prediction in to maximize and accelerate claims payments. 3 months, 400% ROI. It's a quick return on investment, allows you to funnel in your claims environment through a predictive model that shows you what's going to be the best for your organization. Telecommunications. This is a really interesting concept of taking people at risk of being a former customer and turning them around before they make that decision to leave, right? We can identify 6 months ahead of time this customer is likely to leave, and we offer them something at that point that'll make them stay. And this organization that would do that, we took churn from 14% annually to 2% annually. Tell me that didn't make a difference in their bottom line. Preventing crime before it's happening. So this was taking a crime prediction in a 4-block radius in a 4-hour time segment and saying, how can we reduce crime in each of these 4-block radiuses and 4-hour time increments throughout our organization? The end result is a 35% reduction in homicides and a 20% reduction in robberies. For a large city that was one of the top homicide cities in the country. Turning a call center into a profit center for a financial services organization. Predictive process. So when you're talking to a customer, what else could we offer them based on this predictive model that would help them increase their usage of our services, right? So right in a live setting, a call center person's dealing with a customer and the customer says X. The call center guy pushes the X button. The next result is, here's your next best action. Here's the next step that you offer them. Based on our predictive model, when people say yes to this question, the next best offer is this. Now, if they say no to that offer, here's the next offer, right? And it keeps going through that process for that person so that we get them what they need and we increase our sales for our company as well. So taking these predictive models and using them live in an organization where they can bring results back quickly changes the dynamics of organizations, right? So when we're talking about analytics, most of the time people think analytics, bar graphs, nice little reports, beautiful little dashboards, that kind of thing. What this is doing in analytics is taking analytics right down to the end user and making that data, that information that normally a statistician would spend months or weeks trying to figure it out, well, automating that into their organization and enabling them to, at the speed of a second or 2 seconds, get a response back and help them make a decision and impact what they're doing. So when we talk about predictive analytics, those are some of the things we're talking about. We already mentioned student performance. Hamilton County, by the way, is in Tennessee County, Ohio, for this particular analogy. But this is a student performance retention issue. Reducing the annual dropout rate by 25%, leveraging 60 different data sources. So taking all these school districts and all these school principals and their data for each of those schools, pulling them together in all in different organizations and different types of data sets, from Excel to Access databases, whatever. Pulling all that together and crunching those numbers to figure out when do students drop out, why do they drop out, how can we stop them from dropping out. And I love the quote from the Director of Sensing Accountability. It's allowed our educators to put a face in every number, right? So instead of people being a number, even though you're crunching all these numbers, you're able to say, you know what, it matters to Joe in this class. It matters to Beth over here, right? It matters to these people. And it gave them the best results for their child left behind results in their district. So just to give you some examples of why it matters And most of you, some of you may not be in any of these verticals that we hit today, but you can kind of relate to, hey, if we could get a predictive model and we could put it into what we're doing today, how would it impact it? We could make it a part of our process instead of it being something that we send out to our statistical analysis guy in a basement somewhere. They're all in basements, aren't they? It's kind of sad, yeah. To send it to Joe as statistical analysis and have him come back a month later and go, here's what you should do. What if it was just automated? What if it was part of the process and we uncovered it immediately and we're able to make changes? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about predictive analytics. And I hope I set up Shankar correctly to get to that, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about how this works. I'm done.
Also want to thank CBID for giving Calvin the opportunity to sponsor tonight, and also for allowing us to present with So you have, I think, a very exciting story to share. You guys find it very informative as well, and exciting. And tonight speaking will be Scott Angela, who is the VP of Pricing and Strategy at Mentor, Sarah Barber, who is the Director of Pricing and Strategy at Mentor, and Shankar Raghunathan, who is a VP with Calvin. So I'm very focusing on really how analytics has been embedded and institutionalized within the with that.
It is really a privilege to be at what I guess is the largest group. Is that what I saw in the numbers here? But I couldn't help thinking how much more fun it might have been if we were all sitting around a bar to get to tell this story either. So maybe you can invite us back when you return to a bar setting again.
It's too loud.
Yeah. We're going to kind of tag team this, but what's really cool about being around this is I'm constantly like listening to the different presentations saying like, yeah. You know, when we all get too disgruntled with just the way the world treats us, we all just need to hire an HR representative and just start our own company here, and we'll be all happy campers. I'm going to share with you really just the paths that we've taken to weave analytics into our culture at Vantiv. And then I'm going to bring on Sarah and Shankar, who actually do all the heavy lifting. I just kind of came from the outside world, was hired about 1.5 years ago to build a strategic pricing and a portfolio management team that then de facto became the start of true analytics at Vantiv for the first time. And so 1.5 years ago, and someone will, oh, here's a clicker. When I started, I had the question that a lot of you may have right this second, that is, who's Vantiv and what does Vantiv do? And so just by way of some context, Vantiv is in one of the fastest growing and fastest changing industries in the world, and that is payment processing. And so what we do is we serve merchants who accept credit, debit, or prepaid cards, and the financial institutions that issue them. So in our world, the way it works is when a card is swiped or entered online, or as Square has done in the case of Starbucks, done with your face and settled completely free of actually any point of sale, we run that from that merchant all the way over to financial institution to make sure the money's there to authorize the transaction, and then later on go back, grab that money, and make sure that merchant gets paid. And by the way, on that path back, the issuer gets a piece of that. The network, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex, any of the PIN debit networks get part of that, and we get part of that. So the pricing and the economic model gets quite complex with that many hands in the pot, and each charging a different combination of percentages or a per tran fee, but that's how we all end up making our money. Here's why the growth is so big. If you think about even over the past several years and the headwinds in the macroeconomic environment, the fact of the matter is, there is less and less dollars being spent that are actually cash or check, and more that are electronic or on a card. And anytime something moves from paper to plastic, payment processors like us do quite well. And so even a year and a half ago, before I was with Vantiv and was doing my research, I said, wow, even during a time when most companies were hard-pressed to show growth, they were showing double-digit net revenue, double-digit like in the 40% net cash income growth, all driven by this phenomenon that the pool of transactions that Vantiv can process, i.e. those on card or those electronic, has continued and will continue to grow for the time being. And lastly, what made this such an attractive proposition for me, knowing I was going to be asked to use data, knowing I was going to be asked to write things, was all of these transactions, some 13 billion a year processed by Vantiv, at over 400,000 merchants that live across industries, all sat on one platform. So here was some $650 billion worth of consumer spend, all clearing through one place. That if it could be captured and harnessed, both for Vantiv's use, for our customers' use, and then for other partners' use, this could be something that could be harnessed to be really, really big data. And so as has been kind of acknowledged here tonight, analytics, when I was in grad school at Northwestern some 15 years ago, I think there was 3 classes on it, I took them all, and they weren't really analytics, it was database and direct marketing, it was marketing science, it was all the names that you said earlier that now we can go back and redo our resumes to say analytics because it's a cool word. And over the course of my career, a lot of companies made analytics the poster child for business. I happened to work for one of them, Harris Entertainment. Cap One was another, Amazon was another. But never have I seen analytics as hot as they are now. So coming into Vantiv, I knew a couple of things. One, that was going to present some unique opportunities and momentum that I could just carte blanche some stuff. But I also knew it would set up some potential real areas that I had seen in my consulting life in the past or in my work at Harris that would be landmines that I'd want to avoid. So if we look at the positive things, the first was the exposure is unparalleled. In the year and a half that I've been at Vantiv, I've been asked personally to sit with the chairman of our board to talk not about insights, not about states of the business where I was doing pricing, but he wanted to know, gosh, you're doing analytics for real? Come show me under the hood, and actually wanted to sit and just understand for the first time in his life what analytics was and how we were building it there. Likewise, Sarah and I presented to our private equity partners. Everyone at every level wants to know something about analytics. And what's so cool about that is the next piece. Back some, I guess it was 12 years ago, I was at McKinsey as a consultant, and I worked in McKinsey being a general strategy firm. I kind of specialized in CRM and analytics, and at the time, I had this harebrained notion that just because you were good at stats, you could think analytically, didn't mean that you necessarily had to work in the IT department. Like, couldn't you grow up to be like president of a business unit too, or a CEO? I mean, just because you're smart and can develop insights and actually have something to say, that means like you're going to be pigeonholed in this niche. And at the time, I was able to convince no one that, that was a realistic path. But times have changed, and the opportunity for folks with an analytics background, I report to the CFO. Our analytics function lives within the finance organization of our company, which is unlike many other companies. My peers, the controller of our organization, the treasurer, they're not going anymore looking for staff accountants or looking for traditional generalist MBAs. Ask them all what they want, and they want folks with an analytical mindset, with statistical or economics backgrounds, no matter what functional areas. COO, same way. Areas that customer service, same way. Areas that traditionally you haven't thought about analytics living, have now reached out and said, that's exactly what we need to deconstruct our business and help us be better at whatever it is that we do. And then it was really awesome to see that students were here, because what that has given rise to is no more than just 1, 2, 3 courses in some undergrad or grad level curriculum, but there's actually major programs and significant coursework that can now feed what is increasingly huge demand for folks with analytic skills. So those were the things we had going for us going in. If I look at those things that weren't necessarily bad, but to watch out for, was the whole notion of, what I call being, org chart trap. I wanted to make sure that folks didn't see us as only serving the CFO, only, being a business intelligence function, but wanted to watch out for how can we actually get out there and ensure that we're supporting everyone in the business who needs to be there. The other one is, how can we ensure that we actually, set expectations in a way that we're not setting up these bars. Folks are reading articles in Forbes about, how Cap One knows your favorite flavor of ice cream before you even know that you want to call. I mean, it gets to such an absurd folklore level that sometimes the expectation to exceed capabilities, we didn't want to do that. And then the last one, and this was a great point from the last presentation, is that you'll get people, oh cool, we'll do an analytics because I saw this SAS or Oracle and that's what we need because it just spits out the right answer. And of course, no, the functionality can be used to automate and streamline good solid analytic methods or analytics process, but never a substitute for it. And it was something that right from the front I wanted to make sure we were able to do. So I'm going to go through 3 of 5 things, and Sarah will take care of the last 2 that we have actually done to try and accelerate us bringing analytics to Vantiv. So the first is defining the scope and what it is. And so I don't have kind of an over-academic thinking about analytics, but I always tended to think about it more in the terms of the predictive analytics and much the way it was in the last presentation. But that's fine, you'd see people saying analytics, and what they meant was some simple univariate report, and pretty soon it became everything. And I said, that's cool, we can live with that, but let's at least define what it's going to be in our organization. And so, if you think about the 2 dimensions, from kind of macro level trends down to the micro level drivers of those trends, and you think backward looking descriptive to forward looking predictive, here's kind of how we bring them all together. At the end of any month or quarter, we have top-of-house financials. There's an income statement, there's some report. This is how we did as an overall business. And the first thing we do is deconstruct that, because we know no matter what our growth was 20% for last quarter. I can tell you, as soon as we start to segment that by industry, by size of customer, by geography, by whatever, we're going to find groups that are above that 20% and below. And as we can disaggregate our business, we'll find plenty of opportunity to drive more growth, either by making the ones above average even higher, and or bringing those lower ones up. And then it's at the granular level that we start to make customer and segment level predictions. Predictions about what their business will look like, what their actions will be, what we might be able to sell them in the future, and then tie those things all together to help us better plan for the future and or forecast results. The second one, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, was the location. So coming in right away, this was a comic used to describe the org chart at Microsoft actually. And the first thing that you think about when you walk into an organization is, where am I living? In this case it was finance. And with that, there was already, a natural kind of mindset that, well, within finance is a policing and an authority type thing. Finance only comes to share the numbers with you if it's a beatdown. And that was exactly what we didn't want. And so, but we didn't actually organize like this. What we really aspired to do was to be the central nervous system for our organization. And to actually be able to go out to business units and bring them information, make them the champions of what they were doing. I would tell my team, when they got a call that said, hey, we think you got data, they said, but that's not really what we do. And I say, you know what? We've been here for like 10 minutes. We're starting I moved my family from across the country. We're started to think, we're going to do what we're going to do to snowball this thing, and let's see how big it can get, and we're going to help anyone who needs help. And yeah, a year from now, when the cup runneth over, we'll start to prioritize. This has worked exceptionally well, and there was no trick to it. I'll see like people drawing org charts thinking they could just figure it out and crack the code. And all it took was hiring a team of folks that had a real service-oriented mentality, that they were there not to grab insights for themselves, but to feed them to the business units to make them successful. And, after 1, 2, 3 times, to see the businesses actually come to us, we support our merchant, our FI business, our product development. It was something where then we were inextricably linked in this organization. And yeah, then we did have to say, all right, how do we grow this team? How do we organize? How do we divide and conquer? But it was a healthy problem to have, and all started with that mindset of thinking, we're going to be the central nervous system for this organization and send and receive signals no matter what area of the body it is. And then lastly, and this is always the one thing that cracks me up, is you go into a business, and you see this, from a consulting mindset, I see it at Vantiv, and you have folks that for decades have made, gut decisions, and at best have a flip of a coin's chance of being right. Sometimes you really don't even have that much, because you make wrong decisions based on what you think are facts, but they're the wrong facts, or they're skewed pictures of the future. And then all of a sudden you get something like a predictive model, and you've all been in those meetings that they show kind of the validation and say, we can with 80 or 85% accuracy. And then like someone has the audacity to be like, oh, I don't, that 80%, that doesn't seem like, I think I went a little higher before we try that. And I just said, stop the madness. You guys have never used a fact to make a decision in your life. Let's not get caught in this trap. Let's make sure that folks understand, here's what we're out here to do. First, we baseline, and that's a fancy word for saying, I just bring the facts and the results that were there as far back as I can go historically, and that's reminding them that whether it's 60, 70, 80%, it's better than we are, then here's the plan to get better, and always keep our bearings so we never get caught in kind of that, oh my goodness, you're right, I'll come back when it's perfect, because it's not going to get there, and all you're going to do is spin wheels until it does. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Scott. So my name is Sarah Barber. I'm the Director of Strategic Pricing Analytics at Vantiv, and I'm going to finish up the last 2 points that Scott started upon. And the first one I'm going to talk about is balancing accuracy and understandability. And after that, I'm going to talk about some of the key lessons that we've learned by going through this process with Calvin. I'm a huge proponent. I think we can always learn lessons and kind of be better going on. And even tonight, I've already learned a lesson. I am not going to wear a suit with fake pockets, because I'm very grateful that we were able to get hooked up with the microphone before, because I can't imagine how awkward that would be, just realizing tonight's are fake. So I'm going to talk about balancing accuracy and understandability. This is one of my favorite quotes, and yes, I'm absolutely aware that I bring literature to a group of statisticians and critics of analytic minds. But I think it actually kind of conveys the point that we're trying to talk about here. So the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. That's Scott Fitzgerald. I think a lot of times, we spend a lot of time being very meticulous about our analytics. We spend a lot of time, countless hours, being very careful with the parameters that we choose, the variables that we choose, the details of the model, checking every which way, thinking about everything that we want to capture within a model. Spend all this time doing that, and all too often, we forget that we need to actually show that to someone, right? We need to use data visualization, really be clear and concise with that. And more often than not, that often gets overlooked. So my first key lesson I want to talk about under balancing accuracy and understandability is that data tells a narrative. So, okay, it does. Everyone knows data always tells a story. The point is, it tells a story, the story we want it to tell, when that data is well positioned. more often than not. So I like to think about analytics as a very powerful force. Predictive especially, because once you start to drop the word predictive, everyone starts to think, wow, future, right? You can tell the future. So they automatically assume, yes, that means a lot. If we step back though, and we think about analytics, if we really want to truly exploit the power that data kind of conveys, we need to actually really be cognizant of visualizations. I like to think about analytics and visualization like magnets, right? If you step back and you pair them together and you don't position it well, they absolutely repel each other. I can't tell you how many times I've talked about a statistical model with someone who could care less about stats. And a colleague of mine actually referred to it as squirrel talk, because it's just like a Charlie Brown teacher talking. It doesn't make any sense. And so they don't get any understanding from it. They don't get any of my meaning. If you well position analytics and visualization, it's a strong force together. And that's how I like to think about that. Second key point, visualizations deliver organizational buy-in. Take a look at this chart. If you had 3 initiatives, 3 actions you were responsible for, and you went to the CFO, and you literally didn't show a chart like this, but you just showed a line graph starting at, back in 2010 and taking it all the way out to the future in just a simple line. And you take it to the CFO and you say, look how great my actions did. I did all these things. Well, that's great. But the problem with that is it's open to interpretation how you got there. Right? You're not actually telling the story with your visual. If you step back and you say, yes, I went from back in 2010 to 2012, but by the way, my 3 actions contributed that purple amount. Without that, we would have been flat. Then you start to get the story. You start to get the understanding. Here's another chart. If I just looked at it as a percentage of growth, overall, people might say, wow. Right? When you disaggregate and you say, you know what? I know that our company grew 10% last year. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. But within that 10%, how many people grew by 20? How many people actually didn't grow at all? How many people actually went into the red? So at that point, you start being able to focus on opportunities and ideas and actually really understanding your business better. These kind of charts are the types of things that have really driven home a lot of impact with our workings with Calvin. Third point, keep it simple, statistician. Key idea behind this. All too often as analysts, we started the problem, we know where we want to go, and we end up having to do 114 steps to get to our result, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I'm really proud of the 114 steps I went through, right? It's almost like a battle scar. And then you go to present it to an executive. Presenting those 114 steps doesn't really get you anywhere, right? You step back and you say, at step 32, if you're lucky to make it that far, their eyes glaze over and all that insight, all that hard work doesn't get bought in. So if you just step back, start with the story, and follow it back with 3 key points, that insight becomes value. With this, get in the weeds, right? So we all get in the weeds, and that's a very important thing to do. Only when we get in the weeds do we really start to see things, we start to understand things, and we start to really kind of get an idea of what's going on. Visualizations really help us actually step out of that and stay on track, right? Especially with Vantiv, we're incredibly data rich. We have a lot of data. It's very easy to get lost. You start digging, we're all analytic, we have very inquisitive minds, and before you know it, you're knee deep in data, you have not solved anything you're trying to solve, but hey, you found some cool things along the way, right? Visualization, starting with the story, mapping it out, and actually trying to solve it before you actually go down that path, helps keep you on track. So that's all about balancing understandability and accuracy. The last one I'm going to focus on, which really helped us institutionalize predictive analytics at Vantiv, is pushing intelligence to the front line. Visualizations have been key in this for us. We've done some incredible statistical models with Calvin to actually zone in on all the areas of business that our executive strategy really wants to solve. How do we keep our customers? How do we get them to cross-sell? How do we handle all of these things? The visualizations that we pull together have changed our corporate structure from pushing executive strategy from the top down to to where we have tools with a nice, simple, clean user interface that our frontline sales, customer service can use and actually have the stats behind that. But they're very easy to kind of use, and at that point they can really get the strategy and it cools it down instead of having the executives push it. Here's a few examples. Behind all these, yes, they look like dashboards, right? They are dashboards. Behind all of these, complex statistical models, predictive modeling. No one using them would ever know that. Drag and drop, nice clean stuff to use. But it pushes that executive strategy. It solves the problems that our executive team really wants to solve without them having to actually push it down the channel. And this is where I'm going to end before I hand off to Shankar. My favorite thing about doing analytics, especially with visualizations, is this problem right here. So there are obviously no knowns, right? There's truths. Anyone who studied enough math knows that there's a lot of truths. There's the known unknowns. These are the things we try and solve, right? We have hypotheses. We believe that something is this, right? But there's also the unknown unknowns. I firmly believe data visualizations are one of the key points to helping us solve things that we didn't even know we were looking for. When you all of a sudden plot something out on a chart, on a nice visual, and you actually look at it, I've had it happen more often to me where I actually step back and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. And so you start to understand that. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Shankar.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, Sarah. And again, thanks for coming to this kind of analytics knowledge sharing here. We are very pleased to show and share our success stories with all of you. And we at Talwin are partnering with Vantiv in executing their strategy. And together, we are making great success, kind of putting this analytical roadmap for the organization. So it's been very interesting, a lot of fun, and we are enjoying it. Before I actually jump into our success story, I want to probably start with a concept. How many of you are seeing what exactly I'm showing it on the screen? People can guess, anybody can guess what exactly is that? It's a cockpit. Perfect. So this is a familiar thing, what you see inside a plane's cockpit. The pilot actually is seeing a dashboard. It's got so many instruments. I don't know how many are there. One measuring the temperature, weather, the altitude, where the plane is flying, what direction, so many things. But it not only gives these instruments to measure, but also you are seeing some gadgets there, very nice looking gadgets, where you have levers to pull to make the plane descent or take off, go left, go right. It's very powerful because you see both the instruments as well as the gadgets to take actions at the same spot. Easy for a pilot to steer the plane. Imagine in the plane all these instruments to measure the temperature or the altitude or whatever is at the back of the plane. And you have these levers, the gadgets in the cockpit, the front of the plane. Imagine every time the pilot has to go to the back of the plane, measure what is going on, and then run to the front and bring the plane to the descent. How many of you want to travel in the plane? Nobody, right? The thing that what I'm trying to say here is the action distance between the measurement that you do and taking actions. We call that as action distance. So you have an information set which has all the information for you to know the patterns, the data patterns or hidden patterns, or dashboard about the trends or whatever. And you have this decision set which you can predict, act upon. And between we have the action distance, which is how much time
or distance it takes before you do some action. And how we can bring them closer, just like in the cockpit example. And we can help you with an analytical process if it is well formulated, knowing the insights from the data. We can easily try to bring them together. Like during my dunnhumby experience, when I used to work with the Kroger data, there's like millions and millions and millions of data transactions. We used to get 250 million transactions per week. 80 million households are purchasing in a week. So you do a lot of analysis on the data, so much even scratching the surface, but then when the shopper shops at the store and this cashier who is actually giving a coupon discount at the time when the shopper is at the store is more relevant than trying to catch the customer from the million customers who are standing outside. So a customer in the store is worth than so many people outside. So how do you make this analytics actionable at the time when the customer is at your store? So the analytical process has really helped there. So what is this analytic process, by the way? You start with a business problem. And usually what happens in any business is there is some problem. There are a lot of challenges businesses are facing. It could be anything. And there are certain problems that are like a symptom. They could say, my profits are decreasing, or I'm seeing higher operational cost, or there are some shifts that are happening in the margin. I don't know. So they'll start with a business issue or a problem. Finally, we take this data and collect the relevant data to find what's going on, to address. So to find or address a problem with that kind of addressing the issue. It could be customers leaving, or it could be change in the volume shift. So we can find what's going on or the trends. Finally, you need to share the information set to the business stakeholders or the decision makers. And that is almost like the dashboard that you see in the cockpit, which will basically tell you why some trends are happening, why there are this particular segment of customers leaving. So that is a kind of dashboard for them. But what good it is going to bring if we are not able to take actions by looking at the dashboard? You need to come up with actionable stuff. And that's why we have to have an actionable insight. So we need to activate. So if we know there are some customers who are planning to leave or retreat, offer them relevant kind of offer or a product, a cross-sell, or maybe upsell, or give them discount, or increase the price, decrease the price, do a bundled package. So, and the important thing is what kind of strategy is going to work. So the cashier who is actually checking out a customer, he has to know, I need to give this offer so that I can make this customer make a unique shopping experience for the customer. Or if these customers are going to leave, they're not happy with the products, is there something that we can offer a bundled package to them? Finally, when you do these actions, you need to keep measuring it, because we need to understand whether our actions are really bringing us the value. So it could be the ROI, the return on investment of the action that you took. It could be again a dashboard. The whole process that you see on the board, it has to be operationalized, automated, in order to bring the action distance together. Because you cannot take years or months or years to do the science, modeling, art and science, keep on doing it. You need to operationalize it. You need to automate that so that we can come up with speed and update the strategy. So if you look at the two-dimensional time and business value, there are a lot of businesses, they find some kind of business event happening. That's all they will see from looking at the reports or KPIs. They don't know why it is happening. So from the time they find an event to collect the data relevant for the event, already they lost time. It's called capture latency. And from that time to basically analyze it and show, okay, these are the trends happening, it takes time. Again, it's called analysis latency. from the time and then taking action based on whatever you find, because sometimes what happens in organizations, these reports that are being delivered to the business users, they are not decision makers. So from the time it goes to a decision maker, which can be a salesperson on the field, who is actually taking the decision whether to increase the price or decrease the price on the field, it takes time. And we call that as decision latency. Now you see the total business value, we lost this business value from the time we found an event to the time we make a decision, and the captured business value is so low. And a lot of organizations are now trying to do their best in trying to reduce this action distance. So the better that we try to get to the decision from an event, it is better for capturing more value. And that's why we call that reduced latency. Now, with this concept, I want to show what's the typical process works in organizations in building this huge data store, and just like what Scott mentioned about everything or nothing. It actually takes 6 to 8 months to build and integrate the data coming from so many sources. Coming from POS, social media, Facebook, you name it. They're getting data from all directions. And then from the data integration to do a data mart, it takes 6 to 8 months. It takes. From then, you have to analyze the data, and then you have to present that to the business users, and then we'll take that and make decisions. You're looking like 24 months. Can businesses afford 24 months in trying to come up with whatever decisions they are doing? They cannot. So the great success that we are having at Vantiv is we are building this, that it takes the same amount of time, whatever times it takes to build a data mart or deliver analytics or insights. But what we are doing in parallel is we are developing an art and science analytical engine coming from the same data sources and doing POC projects to start with. Like some of the projects that we start initially was something which has a maximum impact, and then deliver the insights directly to the business stakeholders and decision makers. We are also getting a feedback from this field so that we can make the art and science work better, because the feedback is happening. The goal is to integrate that back into the data, so we are synchronized with the data mart. So we are doing both things at the same time. And the business stakeholders, the business decision makers, they are able to get these insights, and they are able to activate, they are able to work with the field. The salespeople are able to tell exactly what products to sell. At the same time, it's coming back into the system in terms of the feedback into the data mart. And we have this Calvin Tell technology which can take any number of data from different sources. We apply all kinds of statistical modeling, probabilistic models, so many attrition models and everything. And it gives based on the need, whether it is an attrition problem or a pricing problem or increase in sale problem like that. So we are building a map where we start with the diagnostics. So it's almost like a patient going to a doctor. He's going with a headache and saying to the doctor, I'm having a headache. But it may be a symptom. The headache could be because of a migraine. The headache could be because of a vision problem. The headache could be because of something happening at the stomach. So we start with some kind of diagnostics where we look at the data, find what is the trend, what's the hidden trend. And that will lead us to find the trends going on, the migration or other things, to basically knowing the answer why it is happening. So from what is happening to why a particular condition is happening. Once we know why it is happening, it is very easy to put predictive analytics on top of that, because we can come up with ways to prevent that from happening or to make it better for the same one what we found out. We use, again, a lot of modeling approaches in trying to come up with the predictive analytics. Finally, why are we doing that? At the end of the day, we want to have a better merchant engagement or a customer engagement, so that we want to work with every single customer to make that experience, dealing with this particular business, a memorable, like a unique kind of experience in engaging with your core customers. We started Advantive with the segment benchmarks to understand the segments so that we can do benchmarking. We then looked at the attrition alert kind of report that is used by the salespeople, and followed by the repricing alert. To now we know exactly what products to sell or cross-sell for the salespeople when they are working with renewing the contract with their merchants or customers. What we are trying to achieve here is, in the analytic roadmap, we are actually working on how we can move the organization from looking at these reports, which only say what happened, to what next will happen in terms of predictive, and also moving from real time in months to real time in days. In some businesses, the real time could be even seconds, just like in the plain example. You have to be real time in a microsecond, so that it is in the play. So it could vary from business to business. So we started with the segmentation, we moved on to the alerts, and now we know exactly what cross-sell or products to sell. So if you want to make your analytics take off in your organization very well, since I've been talking a lot about the cockpit, the key takeaways are how we can replicate the success that we are having at Vantiv is try to find the business need or the impact the particular project can have on the business. Try to find, that could be some symptom, that could be some kind of issue the business is having. So let us try to spend some time in gathering the data for that and to understand why it is happening. And get a business sponsor in the organization, because it's very crucial to get a business sponsor who can embrace this, kind of making this organization using analytics as a roadmap to make it more competitive in the marketplace. So we need a business sponsor. The other thing is, when you're doing this data, like what Scott mentioned, you don't have to be 100% perfect, because 80% can be directional for you to move the needle or make some progress or take some actions. You don't have to be 100%. So balance the accuracy and the speed. It's very, very crucial. And like what Sarah mentioned, data visualization is the key, because after spending months and months, I know the experience being an analyst, working on this data and coming up with so many different models and statistics. And finally, when you're going to present it to the business, visualization is the key, because you have to tell the right story to the management so that they can get the buy-in. And finally, I would say we can build the data and also deliver the analytics at the same time. We can do that. You don't have to wait 24 months until you get your data store up and running. You can start with some projects which will have a lot of business impact, and start making it more actionable, reduce the action distance. Thank you very much. And since I think we have got a few more minutes, any questions, something that we can use this time to answer that you are facing in your business or something like that, we can help you or answer. Any questions? Nope. Feeling sleepy? Again, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Our last presenter for the night is going to be Dave Rogers, and he's an associate professor at the University of Cincinnati College of Business. Just curious, how many UC grads or current UC students are in the room? All right.
How many were ever in my class?
Yeah.
2.
All right. So he's going to be our last presenter. If you guys could keep in mind, everyone should have gotten a survey. Please fill those out for us, and you can give them to me at the end of the night. That's the reason we're able to increase the amount of knowledge and then get great speakers and be able to provide opportunity for you guys to learn. So, and don't forget at the end of Dave's presentation to get those back to me, and without any further ado, Dave.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here. Steve Peterson just mentioned the Major dashboard, the first one in the 1980s. I thought that was detailed from having about the dashboard light. I didn't realize that was not the first one. Before analytics walk into a bar, I don't have a joke specifically for that, but we'll talk about those analytics. This is a bit about who I am. I've been at the University of Cincinnati since 1985, previously coming from Murray State and Purdue. You can see my degrees are all math and business, operations and business. A lot of courses. The one I want to pick on here, we may interact together. We do a class called Case Studies in Business Analytics, where we actually go out and work with companies, put a team of 4 or 5 students on a project. We just work with a huge amount of data we've done humbly. We've been down at Toyota in the middle of their factory collecting data. Every one of these are wonderful opportunities, and if your company would like to have 5 master's students work for your projects for free, let me know. Big data is big help. We love it. Us in the academic world probably been waiting for this type of epiphany that everyone gets. We're extremely glad about analytics becoming a popular word. Life's the art of drawing sufficient conclusions from insufficient premises. Now we're able to fill in a lot of holes and clear up some of the insufficiencies with all of the losses, with all the extra data that we have. But I want to bring out a point. All that data is worthless. You know, garbage in, garbage out, right? All data is worthless if we don't make good decisions. And we still have to make good proactive decisions. And that's like eating a mushroom. It can be poisonous. I'll give a couple of quick examples. We've already had one reference to crime, how that we can reduce crime by collecting the data, see where it is, put our officers there to battle that problem. But we still need the experienced captain. As soon as you change the officers, what happens to the crime? It moves immediately. They start pushing the drugs on another corner. The murders help happen somewhere else. And how do you quickly and effectively and proactively address that? You need a person. You need someone who's bright and sharp. Sports. There's so much analytics in sports right now. I had a master's defense today, and the student who defended his master's project, he's working for a sports analytic company. There's so many of that happening. They collect so many statistics per game, per minute, points scored, rebounds, elbows to the face, you name it, they collect it. But why was that person scoring? Was the best point guard playing at the time with that person? The coach knows that. You still can't replace an experienced coach, regardless of the data. So that's great for us, right? We all need to know that we're still valuable. As humans, we can't replace ourselves with data. But that says, big data, bigger problems. Sometimes we have problems with what little bit of data we have. But now we have extremely large sets of data. That can exacerbate, maybe exponentially, the problems if we think we have well-collected, correct data, and we go on that notion. If you talk to Procter & Gamble, folks there, I think left, folks there will tell you that they're regretful somewhat on how much data they don't collect anymore. They farmed it out. They let other people collect the data for them. They're no longer in control of collecting that data and knowing how accurate it is. But even when they did collect a lot of their own data, my wife is an expert in gambling. And she had a project one time in which for 2 weeks she studied the 30 to 40 people that were calling the left coast and asking, do you use Tide? How often do you use Tide? Do you like Tide? Do the clothes smell good after you use Tide? A litany of questions. They found 2 people out of 30 or 40 were collecting data for a dial tone. Totally hung up. Oh, they just kept collecting data. Oh, yes. So even their own data that they were collecting themselves, you would think, oh, we can control it now. 240s, 120th, and that's just the ones they caught. We're collecting it for a dial tone. You think, well, they must have had an incentive program. No, there was no reason at all for that to happen. So you have to be real careful about data. Collected at any level, however big. Gratuitous Dilbert comic. You have to have one, right? Data. The second option feels right, let's go with that. Should we always ignore what the data says, or is this more of a one-time thing? It's called intuition. It's a slippery slope to witchcraft. So we love data, right? We like having the security that we can back up with numbers, with data, with hardcore evidence. What's going on? Here's the 4 characters that are walking into our bar. And we see many different notions of this. And I think the first P and the last P is kind of the traditional way that we've always, in my area, looked at data: descriptive analytics and prescriptive analytics. What happened and what's going to happen? What should we do to what's going to happen? Well, we've kind of got a bigger granularity of it now. We popped in inquisitive and predictive. So what happened is descriptive. Why did it happen? We can inquire inquisitively. What will happen is predicting it. But there's a big step, not just predicting it, but what should you do about what will happen? That's a much bigger issue, and that's where I like to hang my hat. And it's probably the more challenging area. And I'll bring forth why I think it's a little bit tougher. But DIP, this is called the DIP index. When I mentioned that to my wife, I told her I was not referring to her. Compliments of Mu Sigma. Does anyone know the company Mu Sigma?
Yep.
Very big firm. They located in Bangalore. They started in Bangalore. They're in London. They're in Seattle now. We just placed a couple of our master's students with Mu Sigma, and they're a large analytics company, is what they'll tell you. DIP and P sit and invite from big data. Let's see how well they walk out of the bar. They stroll in, let's see how well they walk out. Well, D, we know what D is, descriptive analytics. Just give me the facts, ma'am. Joe Friday, of course Dan Aykroyd did the second movie of it, but I don't need to read all of this. This is a nightmare for many of you. This is Stat 1, right? Maybe I'm talking to ones who love Stat 1, but a lot of people in the business college that I teach, they don't like the statistics. Maybe I'm talking to the choir. You love it. But that's what we get. Frequencies, means, medians, modes, the facts of the matter. We graph them, we chart them, we dot them, bar, and pies, and stem, and leaves, and ogives. I don't know how to pronounce it. And we present it visually, and very creatively now, right? We've got extremely creative, massively incorporating with 2 and 3D. And our brains operate differently, I learned today. We love this development. It's great. It's wonderful. It's really helping our field. D walks out of the bar pretty good shape. He imbibes from big data. He walks out like on steroids. This is great. We've almost taken an area that was just describing something and turned it into a living creature. We not only describe, but from the description we can see, we can evaluate, we can make observations that are beyond just the numbers. So we really love the creation of this area. Better software, better hardware, easier to collect and store enormous amounts, easier to visualize and present, decomposable. If I want data on that factory, on that month, for that product, I can go get it. It's great. We love it. I'm talking to the choir. You guys all agree with this. And you walk out of that bar pumped up. D really walks out okay. But be careful. Have you seen this slide before? A tube map is something, a crap load of irrelevant data put together in some vertical image. The cloud with random words in the shape of something, a Venn diagram of something. The world's tallest buildings plus something they're building in Dubai. Don't just be gratuitous with your, oh, I gotta have a good picture. Make sure it's very well crafted. Oh, more careful. And these are things that I've taught for the last 20 to 25 years before big data became a popular thing in the last 2 or 3 years. Data can be problematic. Recording errors, employee sabotage. Oops, the computer burnt. Jaded data. The way I collected that data, I asked a question that gave me an answer that I didn't really expect. For example, what do you think of President Obama's rotten policy for health care? Ooh, I biased your answer. It's jaded data. Dirty laundry. I don't want to show you my data. If I show you my data, you're going to find out that my workers have not been coming to work on time. Data's problematic. It can be incomplete, missing, contradictory, confidential, ambiguous. And sometimes it doesn't matter. You don't need to get too stoked into data. There are 3 reasons why I can't do that. The first one's we have no money. The others don't matter. So sometimes data might be overused. What's the objective? What's the realities? Realities of data can be problematic. What about inquisitive analytics? I popped down some things that I consider inquisitive. What happened? Why did it happen? Sampling. You can do some sampling and see what happened. Confidence interval estimation, hypothesis testing, analysis of variance. We can see why things might have happened. Now, some of this becomes moot. If I've got data on an entire population, I don't need to do sampling, right? I know the exact numbers from the population. So some of these become moot, but some of them don't. You know, sampling may be destructive sampling. To sample something, I have to tear it open, and it ruins the product. So I can't sample the population. So we still have sampling and all of these types of why did something happen. We still have those things occurring. So I walks out of the bar neatly tailored. More sample data readily available to use for these tests, higher confidence levels for the results we get from these tests. We love big data. It only helps us become neatly tailored. So she walks neatly tailored out of the bar. Not a problem. What about predictive? Number 3 on the list, predictive. Regression analysis and using it for prediction. Forecasting models. I probably should have conjoint in the inquisitive, but more data, similar things. More data for various model choices. So we just have so many more opportunities, so much more appropriate data to use. It only dresses us up nicely. So P, walks out of the bar neatly tailored. This is what you get when you Google neatly tailored. Well, what about prescriptive analytics? It might not even walk out of the bar. And yes, that's someone who has fallen down the bar and they place bottles around him. It can take, big data can take prescriptive analytics down to just a slow grind. Big data can be overwhelming and P does not walk out of the bar. And I've just experienced this in some research that I've been doing. I'll show you the example. Optimization routines can grind to a halt very quickly with large data. Linear programming, not too difficult. Linear programming with continuous variables. You can solve them with a simplex algorithm pretty quickly, but as soon as you go to this one nasty word, integer, well, those problems get so tough so quickly, and then you add integer nonlinear. Whoa! Big data takes us down to just crawling. It can really bring us down to our knees in prescriptive analytics. And it's a good challenge for us. It tells us we need better algorithms. It tells us we need better computer hardware. We need smarter algorithms. We need to specially code algorithms. So it's shown us that we need more work in the prescriptive area, a lot of it. So the 4 characters, D walks out on steroids, I and P walk out neatly tailored, but prescriptive analytics can grind to a halt. And let me give you a quick example. This is a real-world problem that we were approached with from a predecessor of Duke. What was it, Synergy? It was an old problem, but here's what they wanted to know. They had data that, they gave us this data set. They said we got 93 buildings. Think of it as a college campus, if you will. With 93 buildings, and we have the kilowatt hour usage for all 24 hours of the day for each building. So that's a relatively small data set, 93 by 24. Not a big deal. Sounds like we should be able to work with that. And what they wanted to know was the following. Which hours of the day operate most similarly? They wanted to do differential pricing. They wanted to price different amounts for the energy at different times of the day. But they did not want to have 24 individual prices. They wanted to have 3 to 8 groups of hours, clusters, if you will, of hours. So our chore was to tell them which hours operate most similarly and should be clustered and priced together. Okay, that sounds like a simple objective. We gave them what they wanted. I've been working on it ever since to determine what we should have given them. We gave them what they wanted, which was not good at the time. Here's the model. It's a very simple model. Let me cut through it. This is to minimize the largest deviation, the largest difference in each cluster. And the first constraint equal to 1 means every element has to be in a cluster. Every hour has to belong to one of the clusters. And we're going to have K as the number of clusters. So it's really a very compact, pretty simple model to explain very quickly. You'd think, oh, it shouldn't be very difficult to run. Let's see how difficult it might be. Let's see what large data can do. With hourly data, and this is seconds to optimality on the y-axis, how many seconds it takes. And this is number of time periods that we're clustering together. The original data was 24 hours. So if we're clustering 24 time periods, we can do it in about a second. Not a problem. Well, let's go to half-hour time periods. Big data, we can collect more fine data. Got the smart meters doing it. No problem. About a second. Let's go to quarter-hour time periods. Not a big deal. Actually, I've been told that the electricity energy groups operate largely on quarter hours right now. But it jumped up a little bit. But still, we're looking at 400 or 500 seconds. 10 minutes. Not a big deal. Let's go to 10-minute time periods. Whoops. That's a day and it never solved. It never solved. I pulled the plug there. These two did solve, but you already see what's happening. What do you think 5-minute time periods are going to look like? They're up there somewhere. But that exponential growth with the data is overwhelming our capability of solving these problems. So big data can take this down to walking on knees. It really slows us. I've heated my house with this problem lately. The computer just runs things on me. What about simulation? We use simulation to do a lot of things, also known as anti-statistics. Why is that? Statistics, we take big data and summarize it with a few numbers. In simulation, we take a few numbers of input and create big data. Right? Before we had, quote-unquote, the big data advent, we could create the simulation and project what would happen. So big data implications for simulation are mostly positive. It doesn't make it crawl to its knee because we're still only inputting parameters that are averages or whatever, not big data input. But we get increased confidence levels with big data. What we put into the simulation model is going to be more accurate. It's going to be a nicer model, better detailed databases from which to choose, more appropriate models, more sophisticated models, data visualization. You've heard that V word 100 times today, but that helps us create better models. From the epiphanies we get from the data visualization, ooh, we need to put that in our simulation model. So there's a lot of good things that come from the realization that we get from big data, but we need to be careful. Okay, here's my skepticism at the bottom. If you overstate your model in a simulation model, it's just like regression. You'll get something called multicollinearity in regression, where you can't figure out what is causing what to happen. And if you overstate your models and put too many variables that have an overlap in what they're explaining, you lose track with your outputs being able to consider what variable caused the output that you have. So we need to be careful about taking managers that see these things, visualization revelations, and think, oh, I need to put that in the model, let's put it in there, and it might not be an appropriate thing from a modeling perspective. So you guys make sure that the managers don't tell you to model inappropriately. Make sure you consider those things. And I have learned since that softwares do not deal with overstated models of simulation. There's no output that says, oh, but you've got some variables that are explaining the same thing. And that could be put into simulation models, but it's not being done. And actually, our simulation person up at UC said that what they are putting in the simulation models are flash headboards, visualization, not putting in the methods to make sure that you don't overstay them on. Let's see what else we've got. Hierarchical planning. And about everything that I have in these slides, I've seen someone mention or refer to tonight. What level of data do you need? We now have so much data, but we need different strategies, different levels of data, different aggregations or disaggregations of data. And that's a very important and non-trivial problem. There was a lot of work in the 1980s at MIT by Haxon Neal and some other folks. If anyone's interested in this general area, I can turn you on to it. But what level of data do you need for strategic corporate control? What level of data, how much data do you need for regional control, for operational control? How can you aggregate? Can you aggregate and disaggregate to exchange data from one level to the other? There's a lot of issues with levels of data. So that's an interesting area as well. But maybe you've seen this when I showed these slides to one of my colleagues up at UC today. He goes, oh, everybody knows that. But maybe you've seen this, maybe not. 2011 McKinsey study says we need 140 to 190,000 people in deep analytical positions. We're going to have a shortfall of that by 2018. And you guys should all give me an amen. Your value goes up, right? What you do becomes more important. But we need folks in the education in this area so that we can fill those positions. That said, you'll see four flyers back at the back table if you're interested in any of these programs that I'm going to show you right now. This is our MSBA program. Maiden is one of our graduates of the MSBA. It's a Master of Science in Business Administration. So it's not the MBA. When we had the stock market crash a few years ago, our MBA placement went down to something like 60%. Our MSBA placement remained at 100%. And probably we could have placed even more because these guys have value. They could go into a company, analyze, instruct, inform, deal with big data, and come out with something that could save the company money, that had real value. And I'm not saying MBA doesn't have value, but when you can show the bottom line quickly and definitely with data and improved with prescriptive and predictive analytics, you're well beyond, I know how to do accounting. That's great for an MBA. It's a necessary thing. But what we are teaching our students is to be creative and go beyond. Business analytics concentration, and we have an information systems concentration. Both are great degrees. Business analytics, you're going to learn statistics, simulation, optimization. There's some softwares you're going to use, Visual Basic, SAS, Ample, GAMS, Arena, MATLAB, ... A lot of different software packages. The Capstone experience is an individual project. We have an information systems concentration, which may be a little bit more to some of you guys liking. Then we have a course in data visualization. We have courses in business intelligence project management, data warehousing, data mining 1 and 2, database design, text mining, enterprise, ERP. And there's some software that I was told we use in that program. The capstone for the IS program is a co-op. So if you're interested in any of these programs, grab the flyers back there, contact me or someone, and we can get you turned on to exactly what these involve. We also have a certificate program in business analytics. And I believe it entails 18 hours. So you can take, I believe it's 12 and 6 or something like that, but there is a flyer back there for the details for our certificate program. Started just this year, so that's fresh. There's a website. We also have a PhD. And one thing that you guys might like to know is our classes are late afternoon, early evening. So you can work with your boss, get off at 3:30, show up for a 4 o'clock class, take a break, have a 6 o'clock class. So we are able to accommodate the working professional. Most of our classes are like that. Informs. How many know of Informs? Not as many as I would have thought. It's the Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences. It used to be ORSA and TIMS, the Operations Research Society of America and the Institute of Management Sciences, and they joined together and became Informs. Informs has really grasped the business analytics world. They've really grasped into trying to attract and show that we're consistent, that what we do is the same thing, just a different acronym. This is our Business Analytics and Operations Research Conference coming up in April 7 through 9 in San Antonio. So let's go down there and walk that little area down there. Informs also has an analytics magazine. It should be very appropriate. If you look at these topics here. Certified, oh, here's one. Certified Analytics Professional. Did you know that was coming up? Now it's certified. We're all certified. Here's the CAP. I don't think they want to call it CAP. I hear them calling it CAP. It's kind of like CAP. Informs to offer analytics professional certification. And actually at that conference, April 7 through 9, 2013, is when the first certification tests are going to be given. And surf Informs, see what that involves. They have a section, Informs Analytics section. Informs is really accommodating this new craze of analytics. So there's a section, this is a LinkedIn page copy, you see some discussion going on. Informs is really trying to grab onto business analytics. We put the B word in front of it, you see business analytics, but analytics in general. Locally, we do have a local chapter of Informs. We just had a talk about a week ago. We had someone down from Cleveland who worked for the Cavaliers, doing business and doing analytics for the Cavaliers. So we had an activity just recently. If you join Informs, you'll have a summer picnic. Come join us. But we always have an autumn speaker. We always have our Arnoff lecture speaker and other business meetings. And I'm sure as time goes by, you're going to see a lot of what we do more associated with what you guys are interested in, big data and analytics and how can we progress in that. We also have a student chapter of Informs. Now that's where I'd like for you to come and talk to our classes. Megan was in that. And we have all of our MSBA students in business analytics and information systems, and they belong to this student chapter of Informs. And we love to have you come tell us about job opportunities with your company. It's a great way to get to meet some of our students and vice versa. They can learn about your companies. Please contact me if you'd like to come speak to a class one day or come on a Friday afternoon to have pizza and give us a presentation about analytics in your company and maybe about job opportunities in your company. That's a great way to meet our students. And we've got great students. Can't say enough about it. Megan's proud. Thank you very much. I didn't have a whole lot. Megan was worried that I wouldn't have enough time, but the main points I want to bring out here is work with us. We're at UC. We love to have a lot of interactions with you in this arena. We'd love to have you come visit us. We'd love to have you join Informs. We'd love to have you speak at our groups, our classes. We'd love to have you speak at our Informs group. Join Informs. Look to Informs. Surf www.informs.org and see what we have there. We're really trying to accommodate the business analytics craze with our LinkedIn groups, with our certified analytics professional certification. I think all these are great things that can only help you in your career. And thank you very much.
Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for those of you that stayed the whole time. Definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be here. Thank you to the sponsors. We wouldn't be able to have it if it wasn't for you guys, especially Great American. Thank you, Greg and Sharon, for that. All right. Real quick, since we did end early, if you could, if any of you still have any trash or anything left over from the dinner, there are trash receptacles on the back walls on either side. And feel free, whatever food you have left, take it. We do not want to take it home. There's a ton of chips. And if you could, if you're done with your survey, or if you could try to finish that and get those to me, that would be great. Thank you again, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the event.
Thank you. Yeah, it was on here.